Because you've got powerful legs. How'd you get the physique? Was it gym or how'd you get the physique?
I've always been...
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
I'm sure no one will mind.
Move him out of here, Darren.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome, everybody, to the 575th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse, a proud member of the Sports Social Network. You can find us everywhere you get your podcasts throughout the week. We will get it loaded up usually by Monday morning UK time. And you can find us all those regular spots. And you can also catch us live here on YouTube, 8 o'clock in the UK, 3 o'clock Pacific Eastern Time, 12 o'clock Pacific. I'm your host, Matt DiGianardo. With us today, we have Dez, we have Rob Kelly. I expect Dominic to be in here, and maybe Andy. He's taking care of the wife today. But if not, I think we'll have a great time because we have a lot to discuss. That 5 versus 5 card yesterday was one heck of an entertaining, 7 hours, 6 hours of boxing, whatever it turned out to be. There was a lot going on there. And that also included another fight with Dimitri Bivol in there as well. A fight of the year candidate among them, trying to figure out where to start out. And I think, that fight of the year candidate, that's where we're going to start out with, even though it was more towards the middle of the card. Ray Ford losing his title to Nick Ball in what was a fantastic fight, split decision. All the cards, though, were 115, 113, one way or the other. Ball getting 2 of them, though. And a fight that I thought was probably a draw or just a round for Ford, where both guys landed big shots. Both guys appeared to be hurt at various times in the contest. And there was a lot of rounds where where both guys had an argument in it, kind of pick your poison. A good ebb and flow to the fight. Dez, it was other than maybe some knockdowns and a conclusive knockout to finish it out, it's just about everything you would want from a great fight.
Fight of the year candidate for me. Really close fight, a brilliant fight. I really enjoyed it. I thought every round was thoroughly absorbing. 2 really good kids who conducted themselves really well. Fight week, during the fight, and after the fight. Just a bullet point here. I think Ball started quick, and I think he got ahead of steam in the first 3, maybe 4 rounds. And by the way, both corners were brilliant last night. They was immaculate, and they gave their kids very succinct, clear instructions. There wasn't information overload. The important ones got on with it, and that was the 2 fighters. I think it was end of round 4. Ford's corner said to him, I know you know what you're doing, but don't let this kid get too ahead of himself. Meaning, don't give him too many rounds to have a look at him. And I think that's what Raymond did. I think he spent probably too many rounds having a look at Ball and just trying to find his measure. Raymond's a really good fighter, He's got a fabulous 1-2 in this southpaw backhand uppercut, and he's so crisp with his shots. But Nick Ball is also a brilliant counter puncher, and Nick's strength, he knows how to close down space and distance without smothering his work. And just take your mind back to the fight. He shuts people down and gets off 4s, 5s, 6-punch combinations. And he really has an effect, and he doesn't smother his shots. He's a very good fighter, Nick Ball. I thought the first half of the fight definitely went to Nick Ball. I really enjoyed Ford coming into it in the second half. I wouldn't have argued one way or the other or the draw. I actually thought Nick Ball done just enough to get it. I wasn't surprised he got it, but I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd have gone for Ford. There was an awful lot of subjective rounds, and it kind of depends what you like. I really liked a lot of both kids. No arguments either way, but definitely fight of the year contender for me so far.
Yeah, and I did like how the uppercuts came into play in that fight. Both guys finding them at various times. Rob, this was a fun fight. I thought Ford nicked it. Thought it might have been a draw, maybe, but I can live with this just because it was very entertaining. Both guys gave it their all, and what I was most impressed by is it was a hard slugging contest. But the guys were having to get unique with the angles they found, because they both covered up pretty damn well.
Fighting in a phone box, that's where you got to find your angles. Like inside fighting, it's kind of a lost art in a lot of today's fighters, and you actually find out a lot about guys who you think are prospects, who have it their own way and are able to control distance up until they get certain opponents where they make them fight on the inside, and then you find out a lot about them. As Dave says, Ray Ford, brilliant style, southpaw, leans back on the backhand, finds different angles, but Ball is all action. Gone on the road twice now, like put it all on the line. And I know they're very high on the pot, Andy and Dominic especially very high on Nick Ball, but not me, because I had him fucking, as you know, Maddie, he destroyed my parlay. So I'll share with the listeners. I got a big 30-1 parlay on Ray Ford, Dimitri Bivol by TKO, Hamza Sheeraz just to win, Daniel Dubois by stoppage, and Zhang by stoppage. And Ray Ford let me down, and I actually thought he won the fight. I thought it was a very close fight, but I thought he pulled away a little bit down the stretch. And like you said, one round either way in an action-packed fight where both have given their all, both have showed a high level of technique and a high boxing IQ to find punches from different angles and hurt each other. I can't really complain. I'm only pissed off that I didn't win the fucking parlay at 30-1 to get me. Like, that's all. That's the only thing that's really pissing me off. And I think Ray Ford will go north now, won't he? Like, he's not going to hang around. There's not going to be a rematch. He's going up. I think he's already announced that he's going up a weight. So
yeah.
Nick Ball, you'd have to think, would be a potential ticket seller. It looks like a lot of these events are going to take place for the foreseeable future. The UK domestic scene seems to be a fucking transported to fucking Saudi Arabia, like Secret Wars in the Marvel universe or something. You know what I mean? They've fucking propelled them all to fucking to fight in Saudi Arabia, and everybody else is fighting in the US. So I don't know, but you'd have to think that Nick Ball would be a potential ticket seller now down the line. All action style, good Scouts fan base. He's gone on the road twice now on the big stage, put in fucking terrific performances, and now he's a world champion. You'd have to think he'd have maybe the chance of having his moment and fighting in front of the UK fans, in front of a bigger audience. And he's proved it. Like, even in the last fight, like he's proved what he is, and that he belongs at this level. So he's world champion now, and that's when the tough tests are going to come. I'm not sure who the future potential opponent is, but he's got an action-packed style. Like, probably will want to avoid more contests like that. He might want to give me on his first defense or something to give him time to recover. But yeah, like you said, potential candidate for fight of the year, and a good way to kick off a 7-hour-long card. Almost kick off a 7-hour. I think the Hutchinson fight was first, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, this is in praise of Raymond Ford. That fight with Kolmatov was in kind of some early chatter about fight of the year. Probably not, going to make it, but he has been in two fantastic fights this year. I got to be honest with you, I'd be worried about the shelf life for both of these guys at this point in time. With the kind of fights they've been in recently, and Ball more so, because I think that's the only way he is going to fight. That's his method. That's the way he goes about things. I kind of think it's a shame that Josh Warrington and God, why can't I even think of his name right now? It's killing me.
Lee Wood.
Lee Wood, thank you. It's a shame that both of them are moving up because I think that would have been a really fun fight at 126 pounds. But we'll see what could happen there. Just looking ahead, because I think right now, Des, with Turkey Al-Sheikh involved in boxing and PVC's stable collapsing before our eyes, I think a lot of fights that we might have not thought were possible are now within our grasp potentially at this point in time. So who knows? Could we see, a big pressure fighter in Brandon Figueroa against a little pressure fighter in Nick Ball? I just think, man, if you could make that fight, you talk about a something that's a nominee for Fight of the Year before the first bell. Boom, you've got it.
No, I was just thinking the same. What a fight that would be. Figueroa and Ball. Lopez and Ball's a good fight. Yeah, but anything's possible now because I think, the gloves are off, so to speak, with this. And what they're doing out there in Riyadh is they're pulling in the four corners. So you're going to see, you might see, I know he's got a great thing going on in Japan, but you might see a new way in the Middle East. You might see Australian kids, and Billy. They're going to pull kids from all over the world because they're trying to attract the eyes of the world onto Riyadh. So, yeah, that's very possible. Personally, I think whoever Nick Ball fights, you're going to be in a good one. I mean, I've really enjoyed watching his career, and it's hard to believe that I think it was only a couple of years ago he wasn't fancy to beat Isaac Dogbo. Not Isaac Dogbo.
Isaac Lowe.
Isaac Lowe.
Yeah, he was the underdog in that fight.
Yeah, so you get your head around that, and so look how far he's come in a couple of years. And I enjoyed the Dogbo fight, and I enjoyed last night. I think Nick Ball's got a big future, but I think whoever Raymond Ford fights is going to be a good one. And to go back on something you just said about the longevity of their careers and what sort of state they'll be in at the end of their careers, sometimes you get two personalities, two characters, two styles that really gel, like a Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank did years ago. I think Ford and Ball, they really gelled last night. But I think there's a lot of kids that couldn't get near Raymond Ford, and there'll be a lot of kids that can't make an impact or dent on Nick Ball. So we'll have to see how both of them operate over the next 2 or 3 fights. But definitely, there's really big fights for both of them at feather and in Ford's case up at super feather.
Yeah, even though it's more out of reach, Rob, I think Ray Ford against Oshaki Foster, that's a high level contest.
Yeah, but maybe I don't know if the two of them meet at this stage. Like, is anyone going to give a shit about it? I don't know. Like, I like both fighters, by the way, and it is probably a high level contest, but it's one that's probably not going to draw flies, that way. So if we see it, we're probably going to see it on an undercard or something. I can't see it being like.
I don't know about that. Play with me, because you think Ray Ford has just been in 2 exceptional fights. One of them he got a stoppage in the last 10 seconds. This one a Fight of the Year candidate. Oshaki Foster has needed late round heroics in very competitive fights in the last 2, and he's definitely
they kind of have similar trajectories and stories like that. So maybe so.
Well, if you look at what's happened late in their fights, like I think that's what's most interesting. I think through 6-8 rounds could be a nip and tuck affair, but I think like the last 4 rounds, it could be very, very interesting, just because it seems like these guys are just both prone to late round heroics and drama.
Yeah, and I think it could be right. It could be tight early doors. Like, I don't know what Oshaki Foster's. I don't know. Would he take over down the stretch? I don't know. But anyway, we'll have to see what fucking gets made. But yeah, the two of them fucking put in a cracking fight, probably the fight of the card, and definitely set the pace. But one thing I was thinking about fucking with Turkey Al-Sheikh, is that how you say it? His Excellency, anyway.
Turkey Al-Sheikh, yeah, it's not like Al-Sheikh. His name is Al-Sheikh. I learned that yesterday.
Well, he could potentially, because they're trying to put so much eyes on Riyadh and everything and do such good things for boxing, he has the budget to regulate drug testing in the sport, basically, doesn't he? He could probably, they always say that the dope tests can't take place because they have to have fucking people to pay them and they have to come out as XYZ person. He could basically fund the King boxing program in boxing if he wanted to, like, couldn't he?
Well, yeah, and
can we
with
get
the
an
money
invite?
he's putting up, like, you'd be willing to take an L, for those kind of purses, not get jacked. Why would you want to risk it? I mean, these guys, in most cases, these guys are getting career high purses.
Of course. But anyway, that's a tangent, and I don't want to be accused of going off on any tangents. Matty, you're going to have to rein me into it.
Yeah, shit. I was gonna say that's not my job, but maybe that is my job now. Son of a bitch. Shit. Well, I don't. Well, we're gonna have to figure this out as we go, I guess. Want to move into the fight that was at the top of the card here. Didn't want to start off with it, maybe because it's just so depressing for me, but it is what it is. Deontay Wilder getting stopped in the 5th round against Zhang. And what was kind of an interesting affair with both guys a little bit ready to pull the trigger. Zhang trapping Wilder at times. In the 5th round, Wilder decided to open up, and the first clean shot that Zhang got on him spun him all the way around. One more right hook, and Wilder looked to be out on his back, but he still found his way up. But the ref called a stop to the contest, knowing that Wilder's heart was probably just going to get him into trouble. But it was definitely what I believe would be the end of Wilder. Definitely an unfortunate end. And I know people have all of their reasons, but Des, I know you believe a lot in the size quotient in this one. I just think Wilder's chin is gone. I think that last Fury fight was basically the end of him, and a round against Hellenius in one random perfect shot didn't let us know what we had, and these last 2 fights show it. And I think against Parker, it shows why he's afraid to pull the trigger. He just can't hold a punch.
Yeah, and I think they're mutually exclusive points, because we saw against Parker that the size thing still Wilder was still poor against Parker, and there wasn't such a size disparity then. But I think he's too small to be a commanding, dominant heavyweight. And I looked at him this week, and I sent you a picture earlier on in a suit. He could comfortably make cruiserweight, and he won't be a big, thick-set cruiserweight. He's very tall, but he's not thick-set. He's got very skinny arms. He's got the skinniest legs I've ever seen on a heavyweight boxer. So, yes, I don't think he's big enough, but you're quite right, Matty. That's not the reason why he lost last night exclusively. I think he's gone, and I want to be very careful, and I don't want to use any clumsy language, because he's been really good for the sport, and I've really enjoyed Deontay Wilder, and I've celebrated him, and let's take our minds back. He brought knockouts back into heavyweight boxing when it really needed it, and he was something to see. So I liked Deontay Wilder. I like everything he's brought to heavyweight boxing. I like the Tyson Fury trilogy, the Ortiz double, the way on the back foot, stepping back, the way he stopped Hellenius was chilling. I think he's been brilliant for boxing. Sometimes, for whatever reason, and it's a combination of age, wear and tear, what they've done in their career, and in this case, I think the Tyson Fury trilogy has really had an effect. But Wilder has just turned. He's like milk in the fridge. He's just gone off, and we're never going to see the Wilder we're used to seeing, and the type of fighter that brought us so much excitement. So I'm very careful not to be disrespectful to him. I knew he wouldn't win last night for a lot of reasons. I knew Zhang would walk through him, and when he got a chance to land, Wilder would go, and that's what happened. But thanks, Deontay Wilder. You've been brilliant for heavyweight boxing, and I wish him all the very best. But I don't want to see him in the ring again.
Yeah, neither do I. I loved watching the guy's career, and what I love most about it was the fact that he was just so awkward, and that yet he kept getting the knockouts, and people couldn't believe he could become a heavyweight champion. And not only did he do that, he defended his title multiple times against a few pretty good fighters in the process. And there were moments where that right hand bailed him out, but he constantly proved people wrong. He had one real gift and one gift only, and he used it he maximized that right hand for its absolute value over his career. And I look at a guy like Deontay Wilder, Rob, and just, the way that he was always, trying to find that right hand, and he would pull the trigger. I go back to guys like Randall Bailey, who might have been the hardest puncher in the welterweight division at that time, but he would never pull the fucking trigger. And Wilder, man, at least that guy was willing to pull the trigger, and that trigger, man, it fired rounds that were just deadly.
No, I think this is an example of when you have to celebrate guys when they're here. I think the Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder trilogy, while it's been overkill for us who kind of cover the sport recreationally, and those of us, well, not those of us, but those guys who cover it professionally, it's been overkill because these two, we saw it. We didn't need to see it the third time. Wilder obviously fought fucking to the courts or whatever to have that fucking rematch for the third time, being the proud guy that he is. But characters like Deontay Wilder don't come around every day. Look at this guy, like 6 foot fucking, what is he? 6'6", only 212 pounds. As Des referred to his skinny ankles. He took up boxing late. He looked like a baby foal in the ring. I don't know how many times. He could lose every second of every round against Luis Ortiz in the 2 fights and turn it over. He fucking, one fighter took him the distance, Bermain Stavern, and then he evaporated him in the rematch. He had all the controversy, the bad loser, the fucking spooky videos that he made about Tyson Fury, accusing him about the egg weights. He's made rap music videos over Afrobeat songs with his wife. He shagged his brother's wife, apparently. He had the fucking meltdown from Radio Raheem to this day. And it's fine margins in boxing, as we always talk about, because if he had knocked out Tyson Fury in the first fight, he probably would have gone on to fight Anthony Joshua. And my opinion was he would have always knocked out Anthony Joshua, because even though Joshua was the better technical fighter, I think a prime Deontay Wilder, he would have had to nail him to the floor to keep him down, as Fury showed, as Luis Ortiz
AJ
showed.
will fight timid at that,
And I think
especially
he would
at
have
that
found him.
time. Yeah,
AJ at that time was going back in straight lines all the time. I think Wilder would have found him, and he could have knocked out Tyson Fury and AJ consecutively, and he would have been the biggest, greatest American hero of all time. As it stood, Fury threw a fucking monkey wrench in the plans and gave him 2 successive beatings that probably took the best out of him. And Des made the point about the weight, but he's right. I was talking to Dominic last night, who was thinking maybe, if it goes past 6, Zhilei's going to gas. And even though Zhang lost to Joe Parker, I couldn't fucking see a way that the Deontay Wilder that we saw against Joseph Parker, who was tentative, who was gun shy, you talked about him being on the trigger. The only two times he was never on the trigger was the last 2 fights. He's gun shy after I think the Fury fight, what he sustained against the guy who was so much heavier. Fury was 272, I think, on the second fight, and I think Wilder came in 232. So he probably suffered from, I think it took it out of his legs as well, that putting on that extra weight for the second fight.
I think he came in lower for that second fight, and he came in at
one of the
third fight.
Either way, what I'm trying to get at is I think that probably depleted him, because he bailed on muscle, and and it all went on his top half, like, as well. It wasn't on his legs, like. So he's as they said, he's been brilliant for the sport. He's charismatic, he's controversial, he's a bit fucking mental. He's probably the most exciting fucking one-punch knockout artist in recent memory. I mean, we've had George Foreman and that, who were big punchers who lifted Joe Frazier off the ground with an uppercut. We've seen Mike Tyson roll through fellas. But when Wilder used to hit fellas, it was a different type of knockout. It was like they were getting electric shocked or something off a fucking electric eel with his big long right hand that he'd fucking throw from, like the Dominic Breazeale
It's
knockout.
like they had a clot move to their fucking brain, like.
And a lot of fellas who fought Wilder were never the same again. Like, look at the prospects he beat on the way up that just fucking died off. Like, he was a devastating puncher, and I don't think we needed to see him out last night. Obviously, they weighed a big amount of money in front of him, but he's given up. What, Zhilei Zhang was 280 last night or something?
Nearly 5 stone, Rob.
He's given, a 70-pound weight. You wouldn't see that in any other fucking. You wouldn't see that in boxing anywhere else. Like, could you imagine fucking Terence Crawford trying to put on 70 pounds? As good as Terence Crawford is, trying to put on 70 pounds, give up 70 pounds against anybody.
That's why I say heavyweight boxing is a different sport from the rest
of it. Different sport, that's what I'm saying. So people are writing Wilder off and kind of laughing at him a little bit now that he's got evaporated. Of course, he's giving away 70. Could take the ball at the end of his career after having 40 plus fights in the heavyweight, which is a lot in today's era, to get over that 40 mark. Like, a lot of fellas retire at 35 now, like 35 fights, 36, like 40 odd fights is a lot in today's era. and he came to pro boxing late in his career and gave up fucking £70 to Zhang. Like it was only going to go one way, and he was there for the bread, in my opinion. A lot of people critical of Malik Scott. I get it. I think there's two of them culpable there, because I think Wilder ditched Mark Brilliant because he likes to do his own thing anyway, and Malik Scott just made him comfortable. Whether that was the best thing for him professionally or not, we don't know. Like, but I still think no matter who the fuck was in the corner with him after those couple of fights with Fury, he was wrecked. And I don't want to kind of dwell on it. It's he went out the way I expected him to go out fighting a guy. And Zhang, by the way, the finish from Zhang was incredible. He was like a fucking killer whale, man. He spun him with the right hand, and then he absolutely connected with him on fucking point with the follow up. So a guy like him as well deserves massive credit. 41, 6'9", 290, and he fucking Roy Jones them with a double right hook there and put him to sleep. Like, so fucking really, really good win.
It was just the 280-pound version, Rob, that took about 5 seconds instead of 0.5 seconds.
It was actually quite, the finish was fucking instinctive finish from Zhang and clinical. So he did what he had to do. Glad it was waved off. I didn't want to see him take another shot. Like.
No, but I'd like Rob summed that up brilliantly, and Rob, bullet pointed all of what Deontay Wilder's brought to the game, and it was well said, Rob. And don't forget, Deontay Wilder has travelled as well. He sold out the Barclays. He sold out Vegas. He's come to England. He was prepared to go to Russia. Deontay Wilder's got a lot of bottle as well. And when he fought Tyson in that third one, and again, we don't want to keep going on about that trilogy, but he kind of stared death in the face in that fight. He got up when he was banging trouble, and he was prepared to die that night. It meant so much to him. Deontay Wilder's been brilliant for boxing, and I think it's quite unanimous now. We don't want to see him again because for whatever reason, he's just gone off the edge now. But last night, I don't think he could ever overturn that sort of that weight deficit. And let's not forget, Zhang is a good fighter. Zhang's not just been brought in because he's big and heavy. Zhang can really fight, and Zhang will always beat good kids. So I think that was a great summing up by Rob, and I think Wilder should be celebrated.
Dom, do you want to celebrate Wilder for a moment?
I want to celebrate our dear departed leader, Wellington, who, I'll just read it out to you, Matty. He correctly predicted, he sort of triumphantly sent me a screen grab of what he had written in prediction for this fight. So he said, Zhang's left hand, the head and body is a dangerous weapon. However, as Joe Joyce found out, the fast counter right hook is pretty handy too. So Steve was happy with himself for getting that one right, but it sort of just Teddy Atlas actually said something actually after the fight last night. He was talking to someone and he said that the right hook, everyone with a southpaw, everyone is looking, their opponents are always looking for the straight left hand, but the right hook from the southpaw position is almost, probably even more effective because orthodox guys aren't used to the punch coming from that angle. I mean, the most famous example I can think of is Pacquiao when Freddie Roach developed that punch with him, and of course he absolutely he caused Ricky Hatton nightmares with it, and not just Hatton but Cotto as well, and that amazing run that he had. But the right hook coming from the southpaw position, it can be seriously effective. And I just thought the way I was just saying to someone, I was glad the referee, it looked like when Wilder was spinning round after taking the right hook that he almost glanced momentarily to the ref, half expecting him when he was pirouetting round that the ref might sort of just momentarily break up the action and allow Wilder to regain his step.
He looked like Terry Harper when Alicia Baumgartner sent it back to the chipper, didn't he?
But no, I was just saying to someone that if that was a Vegas fight with a big Vegas fight, Wilder fighting on a PBC card in Vegas with Kenny Bayless refereeing, I think Kenny may have helped him out a bit there in that situation. When he was in that pirouette, before Zhilei caught him with the second big right hand.
I think prolonging that fight wasn't helping Wilder by stretch.
No. I hope he retires. I mean, he has been I think when you reckon with the fact that, as Dez said, he was prepared to go to Russia, the way he fought in the third Fury fight, you know, when you consider that, and you consider the fact that the AJ fight, the fight that we all wanted at a certain time, AJ Wilder for undisputed, and there's always going to be the debate about why it didn't happen. But in my view, I think it's more likely that AJ and Eddie and Barry Hearn were more responsible for that fight not happening, because they wanted it. I think they wanted too much on their own terms. So I think that's probably why it didn't happen. But yeah, it's I was just sort of joking with Rob last night actually after the fight, and you could hear screams from Wilder's corner during the rounds and also between the rounds. I think it was Malik Scott and whoever else was in the corner. They were imploring Wilder to push Zhang back, sort of conveniently overlooking the fact that he's like 5 or 6 stone lighter, and he could probably make cruiserweight. So it was sort of nonsensical advice, but you look at his build, and it's been remarked upon ad nauseum that how thin his legs are. He sort of is built as akin more to a basketball player than a you know what you would associate with a heavyweight. But I mean, if you think about late Lennox Lewis and how thick Lennox's legs were, you know, the lower legs, sort of sounding a bit like God here, but
yeah, you haven't let loose a racial epitaph yet, so you're cool. Keep going, Dom.
Oh, I don't even know about. Oh, I'm in the dark about that, so I'll wait for that with bated breath. But yeah, hope Wilder, hope that's the last will save him. I think Rob's right. You know, they were there, Shelley Finkel, Scott Wilder. They were there for the cash grab, and I thought it was very telling when Shelley Finkel went over after the fight to sort of shake hands with Turkey. His Excellency was sort of unfailingly courteous and polite, as he generally always is with everyone that you see him come into contact with. But it looked pretty at that. It looked like it was a pretty sort of cursory exchange that you could sort of tell the body language. Turkey knew that these people are just they were here for the check, and that was that. But probably for the best that, you know, if for some sort of reason Wilder had somehow pulled that out last night, I don't think you'd want to have seen AJ and Wilder at this stage. It wouldn't be, you know, it would just be a travesty compared to what it would have been when they should have fought. So probably for the best. But yes, let's see where Zhang, where he goes, who he fights.
I feel like Zhang is kind of like the king of tier B right now.
What about Zhang? What about Zhang against Dubois?
What's that?
What about Zhang against Dubois?
I think Dubois is fighting AJ at Wembley in September or October.
Oh, I want to see it. I want to see that one. But what I'd say just on Wilder as the last point for me, the biggest pity about Deontay Wilder is that he didn't come to the sport early, because he was nearly 30 or something when he turned over, wasn't he, to the Olympics and that. Like, if he'd have fucking come, well, he wasn't nearly 30, he was fucking late 20, but he didn't come to the sport. Imagine he'd have come to the sport at 8 years of age, like most of the other boxers, and boxed all his life, and he had a bit of slickness to him, and he was good on the feet, and he had a bit of defense, and he had a bit of authority on the jab. I mean, he was with Mark Breland, part of the greatest amateur team of all time, who was a hell of a fucking, the kind of Floyd Mayweather phrase, but he's one of the welterweights that would have given Floyd massive problems. And he couldn't teach him how to jab. He was very stubborn in that. Like, so I think he turned over late, and he found it hard to take on instructions. If he'd have been in the sport from early, God knows how dangerous he could have been, because he was that dangerous being bandy-legged, like, you know what I mean, and having terrible technique for most of his career.
He won a bronze medal with basically no background.
Exactly.
12 bouts, yeah.
Yeah, so imagine he'd have come to the sport at 8 years of age and what he would have become. Unbelievable.
But do you remember, just on that point, Rob, and you mentioned about his job, and to me this has always been a real quandary. I've never been able to understand it, but I don't know if you can remember the first fight against Bermane Stavern, and that was the only fight. It went 12 rounds.
Who can't box? He got up on the ring apron afterwards, and he went after the press city because he kept him on a jab for the whole night. But even at that, like,
that was the only fight. But that was the only fight. What I'm saying is that was the only fight where I saw him use it, and his job was good that night. But you never saw it ever again after that.
Well, the people that like the Joe Rogans and all who compare him, he's like a heavyweight Tommy Hearns. But Tommy Hearns used to shoot the jab from a low position and he used to feint with it a lot. But when he fucking hit with it, it was like getting hit with a baseball bat. There was authority on Tommy Hearns' jab, and for someone like with Wilder's build, who already had the fucking equalizer, he had the rubber outer, he had the fucking. You're waking up and you don't know. Remember when he hit Hellenius going backwards? And that's why I think he was still shot as well, by the way, because it's almost like he accidentally knocked out Hellenius. He never threw a punch since
That's
Fury
a good
3.
point, Rob. Yeah, that's a really good point.
But if they'd have worked on his jab and he was able to go up and down the levels like a fucking b-hop, like feint it like an Andre Ward, like shoot the fucking jab and get into position with that right hand over the top, he might have been unbeatable.
Well, I'll tell you,
and still had his vulnerability. So, but anyway,
as a segue into the next one, you want to talk about a good snapping jab from a tall fighter, Hamza Sheeraz. My God, that jab was nasty. Just holding Austin Williams in place and absolutely busting up his right eye, something nasty. And every time Ammo seemed like he was, or should I say Tiger, was getting something going, Sheeraz would land something big, and especially in the 10th round, landing this left hand out of freaking nowhere after getting dominated for the round, putting Williams on his back, and then just finishing the show in the 11th. But the story for me was that jab. I mean, that's the way a tall guy has to throw a jab. You cannot be passive about it and leave your chin out in the air. You have got to snap that thing and do it with authority.
Yeah, Hamza's a good fighter. And we saw Ammo caught him in a second. And I don't think Hamza even had to reset or change anything. He just carried on doing what he's good at. And that was a moment in the fight, but it wasn't because Hamza done anything wrong. It wasn't because he had to change or make adjustments. Hamza performed really well last night. I'm trying to think of a guy that I can like him to. Now, Tommy Hearns is too extreme, but he shows a lot of similarities to Tommy Hearns. He seems to have a spiteful jab where he almost arches down on it and he follows through with a straight right hand. He can punch. He's got good, thick set legs for a tall guy. And for a tall guy, I don't refer to him as a skinny guy.
He's got really beefy legs for a guy that should be 2 weight classes higher.
I've got to tell you, I always look at fighters' legs, and I noticed that last night. He's not got skinny legs. He's not a skinny kid. He's really proportionate for such a tall guy at the weight.
You got to wonder what he rehydrates to, Des. You got to wonder.
Correct. Yeah, you have. But look, I mean, I think Hamza is one of these guys that could really open a lot of doors in boxing. I think he's ever so well spoken. He's always on a charm offensive. He's very clear. He's got a lot of clarity when he's speaking after fights. He's a charming individual. I really like Hamza. I'm becoming a fan of him. I'd like to see him move him a bit faster now. I think this might be the foot in the door now to see the bigger fights for Hamza. But I think there's not much to say other than he's got good feet, he's got good hands, he's got a spiteful long jab that finds the target, and he always looks for the right hand after. He's a good fighter, Hamza. And just on Ammo, very brave last night, and he probably realised after round 4 or 5 that this is going to be a really hard night. And Ammo was brave, he was tenacious, and he stayed in there. But Hamza was just a class above.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, Dom, you got to give it to Williams as far as heart goes. He never quit trying. He was always looking for something. In the 10th round, he seemed like he was right back in that fight until he got dropped. And I got to tell you, this entire card, honestly, was filled with grit and heart. I didn't see any quitters in the ring last night.
No, that's very true. You know, it was. Well, I would make just thinking about that. I would make a sort of partial exception with Hrgovic. We'll get to that in a while, maybe if I haven't got there already. But yeah, I thought you're right to say Williams. He for the shortcomings that he has, I'll talk about in a second. I thought his heart and he was very game.
Yeah, I fell in love with him last night, Dom. I thought he was very brave.
I thought a lot of fighters would have found a way to get out of it, but I saw sort of a pattern emerging from after the good start he had. He would a lot of the rounds he would come out Williams, and he would have a very good spurt in the first 20 or 30 seconds. Get whipping a few shots around the body. But you got to sort of got the sense Sheeraz was just sort of got used to absorbing those and just getting it out of the way, and then he would just get back down to work again.
Sorry, Tom. Sorry to interrupt you, Matt. To ask you the question, I think you've got to be really cute to beat Hamza Sheeraz. I think he's too big. He sets himself really well. He's got good feet and he's got very long levers. I think Ammo was a bit too honest last night, don't you?
Yeah, he's too he's a bit too predictable, and he's well, I was talking to Steve about it. I thought I was looking at his balance, and I thought his balance didn't look the best. I thought he fundamentally was quite basic, and squaring up too much. I was talking to a few of the guys, and I was saying, with Sheeraz, as impressed as I was with him, especially with the jab, I still want to see more evidence. I want to see, and I'm not saying he can't win a world title because middleweight is historically weak, but at the minute I would pick Alan Canuli probably still to beat him. I think he would have a better chance against Adames. But I would like to see him in with sort of some guys before that to see maybe to give him a chance to go through the gears in a fight, and maybe quicker earlier in a fight. You could say he was very disciplined and admirably disciplined last night, and but I would like to see. I love the job. I really love the job. And he. Go ahead, Molly.
You said I think that Ali Mahanala is definitely a very difficult fight for him, and I think it's when you take if you're looking for any negatives, some of the left hands that he got caught with by Williams, you could definitely see Ali Mahanala landing, and he's also pretty good when it comes to getting you to start looking for the left of the body before coming over the top of the head with it. That'd be why I'd worry about him. But when you talk about Adames is a puncher. He's rugged. He throws some of the shots pretty wide from positions you can't see. And yes, you can pick him off. And I think that uppercut of Sheeraz could really play in that fight. But I will also say, if you're talking about what could kind of throw a guy like this off, well, I think a guy like Adames could be rough and physical. I think Adames is a really tall ask for Sheeraz, actually.
Yeah, it's
But Julian Williams would be a good gauge, wouldn't he, for Hamza?
Yeah,
I think he definitely.
He's on the back. He's coming off a win, Julian Williams, and I think it would be a good comparison fight for Hamza to see where he's at.
Who did he beat last time out there?
Let's have a look. He'd been out recently. He beat David Vittori. He stopped him in the second round.
I have no idea who that is.
No, they're bringing him back, Williams, and it'd be a good comparison fight. I can't look. Adames is a good fighter, and we think Hamza's a good fighter. But if you just want to test the water, I think someone like a Williams, who's been a world-class operator and mixed in good company, I think that would show us a little bit more about Hamza. But I think Hamza's definitely got something.
Just want to get in real quick. Real quick. I want to get the super chat in so I can get a Johnny comment into those banging. Mr. Tosh Brandon Home Junior Malone throwing in $9.99 says, "Thanks for the show, guys. Best in the business. Keep it up." And on the back of your statement there, Johnny brings up a good point. Third Williams in a row. Let's do it. Taking them out one by one. Go ahead.
Shout out to good Celtic fan there in the super chat. Hail, hail. What was I going to say to you? No, I think Sheeraz has got it, but I don't know if he has got it. Do you know what I mean by that? I think he has all the attributes. I thought he was reluctant to go through the gears last night, honestly. If I'm being anyway critical of the performance, I thought he did. I didn't think he finished that with the exclamation point that it should have had for a guy with the expectations that he has on his shoulders right now. I get it, there's a lot of pressure. He's fighting in Saudi Arabia, but I thought even though he won comfortably and it was a good finish and he showed good things in the ring, like he didn't do anything wrong, necessarily. He got caught a couple of times. That happens. Amo Williams is not a mug. But I thought he fought like a guy who had pressure on his shoulders. And I was going back to what Des said actually last week on the pod. That's what I was going to say. This is why Des is on the pod, because he gives such good insight on styles of fighters. And he was talking about the level of opposition. So I don't know if Hamza Sheeraz. Well, I think middleweight is wide open, and I don't know if this is going to be a deciding factor in where he goes or not. I don't know if how he's been matched up to this point, if he's seen enough different styles, to be the finished article. So I don't know what he's going to look like. What I'm saying by that is he looks great, but he also gives me vibes that he could come unstuck against a guy with an awkward style maybe, or a big puncher, somebody who can fucking throw from angles. So I don't know if he's seen enough on the way up. I think he's kind of been cared for on the way up. Not saying he's been fucking handpicked like Mickey from Rocky or anything, but I just don't know. I like what I see, but I think he was a bit tentative last night. I think he could have put the foot down a little bit earlier and rocked Amo Williams well and got him out of there. Having said that, middleweight division at the moment, damn, is like, these guys are not fucking household names or anything. He could pick up a version of a type that actually really build his brand and go on to be a star. I've heard the allegation being thrown at him that he's a weight bully. I've used that term before myself, talking about certain fighters like Errol Spence and that. Like, but if you can make that weight, you're at that weight. You know what I mean? And that's the other guy's problem. You know what I mean? So I don't really.
He looked healthy at that weight. It wasn't like he looked like he was drained and struggling to make it. He looked very healthy.
He's a big middleweight. He's a big middleweight. So with that, I don't know. Like, if his vulnerabilities, even if he has them, will they be exposed by the current crop? I don't know, but. I think that Julian Williams fight is a right test for him. I like that from days. Like, I'd like to see him in with that kind of style on the road, maybe as well over in the States or something, just to see what he's about. But he's definitely going places. He's a bit robotic for me. Like, I like that he's well spoken and that, and he's a consummate professional. He seems switched on at all times, and those are the good things that you like about fighters in the sport. You should appreciate them, but. Just in terms of draw, when you're that kind of character, I like to see the finish. And I know he got the finish, but I think he could have got it in better fashion. And I think he was a little bit tentative. Now, it could be being hypercritical, but these fucking cards are 7 hours long. You're going to be watching for every detail. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a few times when Ammo touched him that he definitely hurt Sheeraz. So I guess he might have had his reasons for being a bit tentative. But I'll tell you, Rob, what you're thinking about, you're like that concern. My concern for him was kind of the same thing that I saw with Fundora coming up. And it's these tall guys who might have a good uppercut. But as a tall fighter, when you throw that uppercut, if your opponent reads it, you are absolutely vulnerable. And I see that as a potential bad outcome from him in the future. It's not like he's necessarily reckless when he throws it. It's just that as a tall fighter, you're in a bad position when you throw an uppercut.
That's what I mean about him being slightly robotic. It's like everything is the 1-2, and then when he doesn't look like he has the natural kind of rhythm and movement to switch feed and pivot and get off on different angles. He just looks like he's a little bit robotic. So I wonder what he's going to look like when he gets. Like Eddie was talking about, Amo Williams was going to bring him to the trenches and all, and that didn't transpire. But if somebody brings him there, what's he going to look like? That's what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what happens. He's an exciting fighter that we're looking forward to. I'm trying to think how I want to arrange this going through the last fights. Let's go with this one. And this fight I didn't get to see as much as I wanted to. I can't remember what the heck I was up to, but a little bit of an underdog upset victory here with Willie Hutchinson beating Craig Richards over 12 rounds in a fight that on the scorecards was quite wide. Richards coming on late, landing a few good shots, but definitely not enough to pull it out. Des, were you surprised about this particular outcome on the 5-versus-5 card?
Yes, I was. I thought, other than taking Bivol out of the card, I thought Spider was the one that was nailed on to win.
The experience level gap was huge as far as level of competition.
And I wasn't sure Willie was mature enough. I'm not sure if up to last night, I wasn't sure Willie's head was in the right space. I wasn't sure he was mature enough. I wasn't sure if he knew enough. He'd been in with enough people. I wasn't sure if he was stable enough. I had an impression of Willie Hutchinson that, you're one of these kids that turned over very young. You've never done the seniors, and there's a reason for that. You've kind of flitted around the gyms, different trainers. You've been beaten at domestic level. I wasn't sure on Willie Hutchinson, and I really did think Spider would be the one to win this one last night. Now, I'm big on Spider because he reminds me of, he's one of them amateurs that come into pro boxing through the tradesman's entrance. He's a Dennis Andrews. He's a John Ryder. He's a Clinton Woods. He's one of them. And they really have to fight for everything they get. They get last minute calls. They take fights they shouldn't take. They're lucky to have a trainer. So Spider's been that kid. And I've seen Spider develop. And I think he's a very solid operator. He's not a banger, but he's a punch. He can punch. And I thought he'd have far too much for Willie last night. But I have to say this. Willie was brilliant. Now, Willie was a box of tricks last night, and he understood angles. He knew how to set the pace. He had great variation with his hands, his punches. And what I liked about Willie, he kind of showed so many old man tricks. He knew when to go for a walk. He knew when to tie Spider up. And in that 11th round, I think Spider really come on strong. Willie didn't go running backwards. He kind of met him head on. He took the wind out of his sails. And because of that, I gave Willie Hutchinson the 12th round when you'd have thought Spider would have come on even stronger in the last round. Willie was very, very good last night. And I like the setup. I like the team he's got around him. What the difference for me last night was, and what gave Willie the advantage was he had really good feet. So if you can imagine, Spider was throwing straight shots. Willie always stood off centre. And when a fight that intense, when you're missing long shots, it takes so much out of you. And Spider was missing an awful lot of shots last night. And Willie was just off centre. And it allowed him to just touch him and counter him. Really good performance. Light heavyweights, there's such disparity between the best in the world and the rest. So let's take Bivol and Beterbiev out of it. There's a remarkable drop, say, to the Yards and the Buatsis. I'm not quite sure where Willie Hutchinson is amongst all of them, but I'd certainly put Willie Hutchinson in for a European title. And I think if he can avoid Buatsi and maybe Yard just for now, he can pick up a European title, get some experience. And I think in 12 months' time, if he's active enough, I think in Willie Hutchinson, we've got a really good fighter.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he plays, see where his level ultimately falls at. It seems Richards is going to have to rebuild at this point in time. That was the card opener. A decent enough fight, but I think probably the least talked about. Getting to this one, the only fight that I predicted right in a little round robin I played, thank God I don't pay much a pick, Daniel Dubois and Filip Hrgovic. What an interesting fight this was. Dom, I'm going to go to you on this one, but as I was watching this fight, the first round starts, and Hrgovic cannot miss with the right hand. I have no clue how many right hands Hrgovic landed in that first round. And honestly, he kind of kept landing that at will throughout the fight, but Dubois just kept eating them up, soaking up these shots. And then he started walking Hrgovic down, landing looping shots. He cut him over both eyes with punches, the ref says. I guess I'll buy it. I can't remember seeing a specific replay. And it just starts messing him around. And the fight gets stopped by the referee. Like I said, cuts above both of Hrgovic's eyes, decides he can't continue. But my God, I can't believe, number one, that Dubois didn't get knocked out in the first 2 or 3 rounds. And number two, that Hrgovic just had, after those first 3 rounds, he was just toast. It was such an odd fight, but I don't remember a man eating so many right hands in a 1 round and standing up to him. It was unreal.
Definitely. It look, Hrgovic, it was one of those cases where it was harder to miss him than to hit him. For Hrgovic, the harder to miss Dubois than to hit him in those first few rounds. But I think you sort of mentioned it there, the cuts. To me, that was the turning of the fight. I think once Hrgovic, now however the cuts were caused, and it was unclear whether there were punches or head clashes. I think probably the former, but I think Hrgovic, I got the sense that he started to feel a bit sorry for himself when he was getting cut, and I think I don't want to detract from Dubois' the resilience he showed. He definitely showed a lot of stickability in there, and he stuck it out until the tide changed, and he he obviously had a lot to do with it himself. I'm not saying he didn't, but he to me it was the story of the fight was I felt it was more to do with Hrgovic starting to feel sorry for himself, and as I said earlier, I was mentioning to someone else, was it legitimate to sort of raise the quit question about Hrgovic? Not in the sense that it was a classic quit, but like a soft sort of quit in the sense that he, you look at his reactions when the fight was stopped. I got the sense that he wasn't too disappointed to be put out of his misery. There was a lot of sort of aspects to it. There was the role of Dubois' father, who seemed to get brought into the corner after the sort of bad start Dubois had in the first 2 or 3 rounds that you mentioned. The father became a very conspicuous presence in the corner, so much so that at one point it looked as if he was blocking the view of the sheikhs at ringside, and he had to be told to sort of not obstruct the view of the watching sheikhs. But yeah, it's I don't want to be too harsh on Dubois, because he's I think he has gone away and he's improved, and I think the relationship with Don Charles is probably has probably been beneficial for him. Don's more like he's a boxing coach, but he's also like a life sort of mentor, and I think Dubois needs that sort of cajoling and reinforcement.
I think after years ago, we interviewed Don many, a handful of times, over an hour each time that we did it. And I think that more so than being a boxing trainer, I think Don Charles believes that his purpose is to be a mentor to young black men. I believe that he believes that is his purpose, and an admirable one at that.
Yeah, it's a good. The father. I still don't think I would worry about the role of the father in bigger fights, but yeah, I think you have to sort of say about Hrgovic as well. I think he it has to be sort of said he probably has been overrated. A few of the guys have said about his stamina and the fact that he seemed to gas very early on. And I think the cuts had a lot to do with it. He didn't show. He seemed pretty resigned to his fate really when the blood started to flow. And we'll have seen other fighters fight through that sort of adversity, but I think if he hadn't got cut, he may have just continued in that vein that he was in the first 2 or 3 rounds. But I would still have the thing about Dubois that worried me, even though he came through in the end, was there was still an alarming lack of head movement from what I could see, and the jab was absent for too long in the fight. And that's why if the AJ fight does happen, that's why I would still lean at this time. I would still lean towards Joshua, because I think Joshua would have it in him to throw more than 1s and 1-2s, which seemed to be the height of Hrgovic's output. I think Joshua would be throwing more than single shots. He wouldn't be as tentative about throwing in combination, and I would expect him to. He's probably an even a more explosive puncher than Hrgovic, different sort of type of power. But yeah, so although I praise Dubois' his stickability and his resilience, it hasn't dispelled the question marks that I think still hover over him.
Oh, there's all sorts of questions about Dubois, but he's an entertaining heavyweight. I think that AJ is probably going to give him I don't know if he's going to give him a whooping. I think it'll be an interesting fight, probably competitive at times, but I think AJ wins it. What are your thoughts about last night and also the potential AJ Dubois fight coming in the late summer, early fall there, Des?
It's a brilliant fight. I'd love to see it. Dubois and AJ. I think it's the natural fight to make now. I think they always had their eye on Wilder and AJ, but obviously that can't happen now. So Dubois and AJ is a brilliant fight. On last night, there's a lot to unpack with that fight because the first 2 rounds, Hrgovic knew he had Dubois' ticket. He knew he had his number and he went looking for him. I've never seen Hrgovic so aggressive and proactive. And he came out, lined him up with a jab and was launching that right hand over the top and he couldn't miss. Now, there's a lot of things here. Dubois showed himself to be very durable, had the stomach for the fight. He made slight adaptations. He moved his head a bit more and he started to double his jab up, which stopped Hrgovic getting off. Dominic's absolutely right. After round 3 or 4, I think Hrgovic started to sulk. And I've always thought elite amateurs from that part of Europe can sometimes come into the pros a little bit entitled. And I think Hrgovic fits into that category. And I'm not quite sure when you've been an elite amateur in a really good system in a country like Czechoslovakia for 10 years, whether you're quite prepared to go into the pros and start at the bottom and fight your way out of fights like last night. I've never been overly sold on Hrgovic, and I've always thought anyone that can bite down and put him back and stick it on him would find him out, and they have done. Now, a couple of things as well. Dubois got really ugly last night. He was throwing his head about and he was using his head an awful lot. Now, I'm not a fan of that per se, because I think heads can cut fighters and cuts can ruin fighters' careers. But sometimes needs must, and you're in that situation. Forgive me for saying it. Daniel Dubois got really horrible and ugly last night, and he had to because his career was on the line. You touched on the corner. I feel like I'm talking about corners every week, and maybe this is just a dopey British thing. I don't know, because we don't see it in other countries. But if Daniel Dubois' dad is so intricate to Daniel Dubois on fight night, get him a bleeding seconds license. Get him there in a tracksuit in an official capacity. What we saw last night was ridiculous. It was a circus. Dubois' dad is sitting 4 or 5 rows back, and he's opted to put himself in the corner, standing in front of Kieran Farrell, banging on the apron. Security told him to sit down 3 times. Then in the end, they just give up. Then the commentator's saying, well, no, Frank Warren wants him to be there. That's not how professional corners are run. And I always say this, a corner reflects camp. Now, if the first round, when Daniel Dubois sat down, there's anything to go by, Don Charles is saying to him, focus, Daniel, look at me, Daniel, are you listening? And then Daniel snapped back at him, just talk. Now, that's not a good line of communication between a fighter and a trainer. And you got your dad outside shouting, and Daniel was, you could see it, was looking over his left shoulder, listening to his dad, while Don Charles was trying to give him instructions. It's not good darts. This is not how corners should be run. However,
isn't it impressive that he won despite all of that distraction?
Right, I'm going to come to that. It's as impressive. That's low hanging fruit. It's as impressive as a kid saying, I never studied for my exams and I got a C+. So yeah, okay.
But it was an A-, but I get your point.
You know my point, right? So if you're looking at heavyweight boxers, if Alexander Usyk is an A+ fighter and Tyson Fury is an A- fighter and Anthony Joshua is a B fighter, what's Hrgovic? C-, D+? So you're beating them type of guys on this model. But we've seen him against an A+ fighter. He got stopped on a jab. So something's got to change. So last night, you got over the line. I'm not quite sure if a camp that's being run by reflection of the corner that we see in can take you all the way in this game. There has to be a trainer that's in full control. There has to be a corner that understands all its duties. And if the dad's that important, give him an official role in the corner. If the dad's that important, bring him into camp as one of the assistants. But I can only imagine, and you know, there's always nuances to these things. I can only imagine when they was interviewing trainers, because we know Mark Tibbs said, it's not for me. When they're interviewing trainers, they probably said to Don, we want you to train him, but the conditions will be that Dad sits in the gym every day. He has an input. He does talk out when he's sparring. He will have an input when he's on the bag. And Don's probably said, I'm okay with that. But how far that gets you, I don't know. But I'm sorry, Matt. Last time I sound this, because I do bore everyone on my corner talk.
No,
I'm a big believer in
I'm a big believer in a good
corner.
Let me ask you on that. So, do you think it might just be a way that some fighters get this kind of arrangement going to give their dad a job? I mean, does that happen sometimes?
Well, Dad hasn't got a job. As far as I'm aware, his dad's not his manager. I mean, Dominic might shed some light on that. I think Martin Bowles is still his manager.
Yeah,
and
Bars is.
Go on,
Bars
Dom,
is. Yeah, you're right. Bars is still the manager, but that doesn't seem to have prevented the father from still having a very outsized role. I mean, just what you said there, Des, about at the end of the first round. I hadn't picked that up that Dubois said back to him, to Don, just talk. I heard Don say, "Are you listening?" But
it was an uncomfortable exchange. It should. That's not how a trainer. I mean, Daniel had a really bad first round, and I remember, and I commented on a friend. I commented to a friend I was with that Daniel don't get past 6 rounds at this rate. He's going to get caught. He really out of sorts. And at that point, I've got to tell you guys, you're all boxing people. You sit down, you have a drink, and you have very concise, clear, simple instructions. You can't have 3 or 4 voices. You can't have a kid looking over his shoulder. You can't have a kid shouting at his trainer, well, come and just talk. That's not a good line of communication. And that represents the camp. So what you're seeing there last night under the lights is probably how a day-to-day training session goes in their gym. You've got 4 or 5 voices, the dad's calling out, Don Charles has got an input, Kieran Farrell's there. And that might get you through a camp at this level. And it's still a good level. But we've seen Daniel Dubois against an A-class fighter. He got stopped on a jab. And last night you could argue Hrgovic's on these numbers, on his resume, is probably a D+, a C- type fighter, and he got over the line. But where does it go? Well, I mean, does that corner get Daniel over the line in an AJ fight? I'm not quite sure it does. So I'm just looking at the last. I'm just looking at the 15% that you might need to polish up on.
Yeah, I think it's very important to say we're not trying to say that Dubois can't compete at a good level, but the question is, what happens when he's in there with the U6, the edges, that sort of level. I mean, to me, after in that first 2 or 3 rounds, even into the middle of the fight, I got the sense that he had almost given up trying to get out of the way of Hrgovic's right hand, that he was just resigned to taking the right hand, and that he wasn't even going ahead, Rob.
No, well, here's the thing I think about Daniel Dubois, and I am on the Triple D hype train since he knocked out Nathan Gorman. I think
Rob, I was on the hype train before that. Me and Ozzy, before he did Nathan Gorman, I was high on him, as high as Ozzy was back then. But
not as high as me.
Well, I was high on him, but go ahead.
No, I was saying there was rumors before that as well that Dubois had fucking starched AJ in sparring and that's why Warren signed him. So there's always been high hopes for him. What I think was apparent last night is that Daniel Dubois doesn't have any natural ring IQ. So Des alluded to the fact his head was the major contributing factor in both stories of the fight, because he didn't move it for the first fucking 6 rounds, and then he started using it to get to Hrgovic in signs of desperation.
If you're not gonna use it to get out of the way of punches, you may use it.
Yeah, do the B-hop, do the master of the dark arts, but I don't even think he was doing that. He was like he was doing glancing headers at a back post, wasn't he? Like he fucking. And I think Dave's made a good point. Like Hrgovic is Croatian and that they're very dour people. He started to get the hump when he got the cuts, and Daniel Dubois took over in the fight, gone on a double jab. Lucky, I think Hrgovic was lucky to see the bet. I'm happy that Hrgovic is out of the road now. This fucking name has been in the sport for about 5 years. He's been fucking mandatory for the IBF. Everybody's talking about Hrgovic. Is it going to be Joshua Hrgovic? He shouldn't have fucking beat Zhang, I don't think, that night. And he has a horrible style. He's a big lump. He's just the epitome of the fucking European heavyweights who are making up the numbers in a fucking division where they're never going to be champion. And I'm glad he's out of the road. Daniel Dubois is actually a prospect who can put arses in seats. And the reason I'm high on Daniel Dubois. The sport needs a conveyor belt of guys who are exciting to come and fill the void of it, likes of Deontay Wilder when they go out in the sport.
No, I think what you've hit on is something that Steve used to say it about AJ when AJ was going through, when AJ was going through the trials and tribulations and USAC fights, and Steve was saying, "Well, hold on a second, I really look forward to the AJ fights because you don't know what's going to happen." And I think similarly with Dubois, with the sort of relationship with the father, and we know there's a bit of a doubt about how he is if the father's not around.
That's another interesting point in Daniel Dubois' story. Another interesting fucking talking point, because the relationship with the father in the world of boxing can be the gift and the curse. You look at it from the likes of fucking Bill Haney to Ryan Garcia's dad to fucking Floyd Mayweather Sr. Everybody's got a fucking
Rob Kelly Sr.
Well, even going back to that, like when you're fucking, my interest in boxing came from fucking my dad. When you're growing up at my age, your dad, like he used to watch the fights. I grew up watching the fights, so I came to the sport looking at fucking Hearns, Hagler, fucking Duran, listening to hearing about the likes of Marciano Robinson. So I like the sport to do well. So with that, I'm praising the likes of Ryan Garcia, fellas who I think could be future stars. Daniel Dubois could be, but I think Ozzy used to always make a great point on the pod. It's the way he's been matched. You've seen him he's blasted out Nathan Gorman, and then he's gone in against Mr. Fujimoto, a Bond villain, for fuck's sake. Like, he's doing nothing for him, you know what I mean? He was whacking out these guys, and then he's had shortcomings when it comes to elite level. The Joyce fight, I think he can forgive. He's early in his career. He's had to go through something. He's had to make a decision. People hounded him for that. He came back. Usyk fight, yes, he did get stopped, but that's a very, very, very close call on the low blow. Like, another night, he stops Usyk there, and he's the fucking setting up a unification fight for himself. So with that said, I want to see him versus AJ, but I do want to see the shit. I think he could do it either. I think Dez's point and Maddie's point both tie into each other. That Don Charles is doing something to elevate black men in the community, and that fucking the dad's too involved, and there's too many people in the corner, and it's only going to get you to a certain level. I'd like to see him with an elite trainer to see could they fucking hone in on that dangerous element that he has, because he can fucking whack. He can whack. If he can move his head and he could set up shots a little bit better, he might have a chance of being fucking world champion and getting a couple of defenses. So with the AJ fight in mind, I'm going to paraphrase fucking Frank Bruno in the rematch against Mike Tyson. Does anyone remember that when Sky Sports had the rematch when Frank had won the world title, and Tyson was on the fucking come home from jail tour, and he was getting his first crack at the world title again? Frank Bruno went out of character and he said, "I want to see his head in Don King's lap when I punch his face in." So I want to see fucking AJ's head in Ben Davis's lap when Daniel Dubois punches his face in. I would love it if Daniel Dubois could starch AJ, man. It'd be fucking brilliant. To be like a passing of the torch. Like, I think
I'd be looking forward to the battle of strategic wits outside the ring, Rob. But Ben Arcel against Don, that'll be.
I just think AJ off the jab would probably have enough fun tonight, being honest about it. But I would love to see Dubois.
That's why I think the reason I think the same is because, just going back to what you were saying about giving him a pass for the Joyce fight, I give him a pass as well. What I was more concerned about in the Joyce fight, and which hasn't changed since the Joyce fight, is his inability to slip a jab. I mean, in the Joyce fight, taking the knee and going out, I can't
He had
call
a fractured orbital bone. That's
nothing
you want to fuck with.
I can't sit here and I know I've said about Hrgovic, but I really find it hard to say qualified or quit, and there's nuances and subtlety to it. But I was more concerned about is how he couldn't get out of the way of Joyce's job, and Joyce wouldn't be regarded as an outstanding jobber. And we've seen that with Dubois since that. There's been no improvement in that since that night. And there was a lot of talk. I remember Steve Bunce used to saying in the early Dubois fights when he was rolling over the likes of Mr. Fujimoto and Nathan Gorman, Bunce was waxing lyrical about Dubois' job. But it's one thing jobbing against that level of opposition, but it's another thing when you're jobbing when you get up to this sort of level. And I haven't seen enough development of a job from Dubois we know in heavyweights the job more than any other division. The job is with big guys. It's critical to have a job at heavyweight, and I don't think Dubois has. He can't. He doesn't have a good enough job himself, and he can't get out of the way of opposition jobs that make me think that he could beat AJ as potentially vulnerable as AJ could be made to look again. Despite this comeback that he's on, if you look at AJ's route, he's had the Ngannou fight. He's had, who did he have before that, Matty? I forget who it was, but he hasn't fought enough since the Usyk fights to make us believe that he's really back.
He fought Gerald Miller. That's who you're looking for.
Not AJ. No, Dubois. Who did AJ fight before Ngannou?
He fought Jermaine Franklin
and Helenius. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's not really enough to say that AJ is.
In Wallen. That's right, in Wallen.
Yeah, Wallen. But even Wallen,
I got to give him credit on that, because a lot of us had given Wallen a lot of love, Dom, and we thought that he was a guy who deserved another shot, and AJ just made.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, Matty. He did deserve the shot, but the word came out during that fight week that the reason AJ had accepted the Wallen fight so readily was because he had handled Wallen in sparring up in Sheffield there, or whatever that sparred, and that lends an interesting dynamic actually when
Wallen had just fought as well, hadn't he? Fought like fucking 6 weeks earlier or something, hadn't he?
Yeah, and also if you're thinking about Dubois, we know the stories Dubois, as you said, Robbie's alleged to have dropped AJ in sparring, and I remember actually hearing an interview with AJ after he had sparred Dubois, and he was just sort of talking about how, ironically, in light of what I just said about Dubois' job, AJ was heaping praise on his job. But I maintain in the fight since, I mean, look at that fight last night. Where was I didn't really see much evidence of a job to speak of. But it would be interesting to see how Dubois, how he reacts against someone who he's had, by most accounts, he's had success in sparring against in the past. Whereas if you think about last night, the story going into that fight with Hrgovic last night was that Hrgovic had handled Dubois in sparring, and that Dubois was maybe remembering that in those first 2 or 3 rounds last night. But it is. I'd love to see it. It would be I think it would be and it would be nice for the fight to happen in England and Britain. And for a change.
Maybe the Saudis are just in bed with the airlines. Have we ever considered that? Making Brits fly over for fights.
Just a great point there, Matty. The last comment. If someone's talking about, just in light of Hrgovic's reaction to being stopped, if you compare it to Big Vitali's reaction when he was stopped against Lennox, there's the difference. Vitali looked like he wanted to burn down the Staples Center that night.
He did, and he was still landing big punches that last round too.
I mean, I still think Lennox would have got to him, but but there's a difference. What if you look at Hrgovic? He was accepting of his fate, really.
Yeah, he did accept it. He had no issues getting out of there. I kind of think that Dubois did to Hrgovic what people oftentimes have done to Dubois, and that's just kind of take him late and resist him, and he kind of falls at the end of the day. So that'll be the question when it comes to AJ.
I also agree. I think Des made a very good point about Dubois' use of the head. I would agree. I would be, I remember Andre Ward against Kessler, and I wouldn't be, I would find it hard to turn a blind eye to that sort of thing. But I think in the context of Dubois and his desperation to get over the line, I think it's possible to read it a bit more sympathetically. You can see that it meant he just wanted to find a way. He wanted to find a way to get over the line, however it happened. And I think it was almost in the absence of a more conventional way of doing it. It was like not a last resort, but it was needs must. And I think you can forgive it.
Yeah, everything's kind of a little bit situational, but we'll move on to the last fight of that card, and that was not the last fight, but the last one that we're going to discuss. Wanted to bookend it, and I'll tell you what, Rob, death, taxes, and Bivol by decision. I guess you don't have to pay your taxes this year, Rob. Congratulations.
Well, as you know, I changed my mind on that one in the parlay because I saw that his opponent was from Malta, and I thought he's fucking getting him out of here, isn't he? Like, he's going to fucking win this one easy enough.
Yeah, all he is an Italian with a boat. What can he be, right?
It was a more difficult fight than I thought it would be for him, actually, because Zinad actually showed he was shooting that jab from the hip, and Bivol was operating with the high guard, and he wasn't seeing a lot of the shots, and he actually cracked him with a couple of backhands behind it as well, which actually snapped his head back. And I believe that kind of shook him into action, because we haven't seen from Bivol before. We always see everything off the jab. He's loose, he steps back, backhand, just does enough to win, and when he gets enough ground in the fight, he'll just cruise down the stretch. But I thought he was irritated a little bit by getting his head snapped back a couple of times, and Zinad was doing a lot of talking in the ring as well. I thought he had good instructions.
That up jab was kind of nice from Zinad at times. He found a home.
Well, I could bore you to death now and go back to conversations with Manny, but I've seen him actually do this on video as well, and he believed always that you should shoot the left-hand jab from the hip, because it gives you more of a chance to block off of it, and you can see everything coming. Sometimes with the high guard, your vision is restricted, and I think that was what was happening to Bivol last night. He was getting caught coming in. But what he did quickly was adjust to that, and he started to close the distance. So when you haven't got the high guard and you're throwing the jab from the low, from basically like a gunslinger from the hip, if someone closes the distance from you, you've seen it with Usyk against Fury as well. Usyk was closing the distance on Fury from the first bell, and Fury has that low left hand as well where he shoots it from the hip. So when someone's closing the distance on you, you haven't got any fucking leverage to throw the jab, and you're automatically on the back foot. And I think that's what was happening last night when Bivol started to walk him down, and he just took him out when he wanted to. So you could see, I don't know if it's a good indicator of what will happen in the Beterbiev fight, because I think Bivol will be more switched on from round one. He did get caught a lot last night, so could Beterbiev see something like that where when you're getting caught by Beterbiev, it's a different proposition. But it was nice to see Bivol get a KO, and I think that's what he's capable of, and it's probably robbed us of a couple of times over the years over being overcautious. He can finish fights when he gets the opportunity.
Hey, I've got a neighbor who is doing some weed whacking outside the window, so feel free to take this conversation as an open table real quick on Bivol, gentlemen, because I'm got to mute myself as to not make this sound like a work site.
All right, I'll give you my take on Bivol last night. I thought Zinad was very proactive. He done the opposite to what Lyndon Arthur did. But I think it went against him, because whereas Lyndon was reactive, Bivol was looking for his range and trying to get his distance right. But I think Zinad was very proactive, and when he kept throwing that useful jab, what it allows Bivol, who's got a really high IQ, it allows him to find his distance, and it's on the back of Zinad's hard work. And I think that's why Bivol got to him. So I think Zinad's constant poking out the jab, trying to keep touching Bivol, it worked against him last night. I think Bivol's got a really high ring IQ, and you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I agree with Rob. We won't find out anything about Bivol until we see him in there with a Beterbiev. They're the outstanding two front runners of the light heavyweight division. And we won't find out anything else about either of them until they fight each other. What do you think, Dom?
Yeah, it's it was the last time I was just thinking that the last time he stopped someone before last night. I think it was the night Derek Chisora fought Caballel. I think Bivol fought Trent Broadhurst on the undercard, and he iced him with one right hand. I don't know if it was that long ago, as long ago as Chisora fought Caballel, but it was a long time ago. And that stoppage last night was a different type of stoppage, but it was just nice to see him go through the gears and just get rid of a guy. But just looking at the fight last night, I agree with what Rob says. You know, he'll be a lot more. He'll probably be even more switched on against Beterbiev. But he did get caught with a few right hands there last night, and it sort of reinforced something I've thought for a while, that I don't think he's elusive enough to make me think he could beat Beterbiev. I think I felt since Beterbiev beat Gvozdyk that not only does no one beat him at light heavyweight, but I don't think anyone lost distance with him at light heavyweight. And until I see that happen before my eyes, that someone proves me wrong in that, I don't think I'll change my mind. But
it was just the way that jab was landing at times, and just knowing how good Beterbiev's is. Like, Bivol's gonna, like, he's really good at like getting subtly off center, but I think he's gonna have to move just a little bit more than he's used to as far as his upper body to deal with some of the stuff Beterbiev's gonna bring.
Yeah, it's you know, the thing that that I was interested in was you often hear this fight talked about Bivol Beterbiev like a boxer versus puncher, and to me that mischaracterizes the type of fight that it is. Bivol is a boxer, but I don't think it's accurate to characterize Beterbiev as a puncher. He's a lot better boxer than he's given credit for, and I think he'll get the Bivol late in the fight, but Bivol, I think, he'll need to throw the jab more than he's thrown it, and better than he's thrown it. It is a great jab, but I think he'll have to and to compensate for the fact that I don't think he has the weight of shot to deter Beterbiev. I don't think he has that weight of shot to keep Beterbiev off him. I think the jab will have to be, the volume will have to be even greater than it ordinarily would with his jab. I just hope we get it. I hope October the 12th is enough time for Beterbiev to.
I don't know. That's it's tough to tell when it comes to recovery, especially when these guys get older in age, and if they are on lay juice. Who knows? Because doesn't
Beterbiev had a spike, didn't he? That went under the radar, didn't he? Didn't he have a
we discussed the microdosing.
Everybody has a pictogram of something these days, I think. Let's get fucking Turkey on the case. What we need right now is the two of these to fight each other in the next cycle. Like, we don't need to wait anymore. Once the injury's clear from Beterbiev, we need to see the two of these in the ring and have the marquee fight of both of their careers. Because, the winner of that fight gets to kind of cap off their legacy really at the division, don't they? Because if Bivol can go out and beat Beterbiev, people in years to come will look back at Bivol like a real fucking top light heavyweight and match him against fighters gone past. Whereas Beterbiev goes out as one of the scariest guys of all time. Like, if he can go out and flatten Bivol, it's one of those. It's 50-50. It's hard to pick like who, both have a chance of winning with different styles. And like Dominic said, like, Beterbiev is an underrated boxer as well, so it will be fucking high level stuff. Like, but we need to see it made now. Like, we want to see these. That would have been. Imagine that card last night. The two of them. I know I'm fucking John Lennon tonight. I imagine all the people. But imagine that card had had Beterbiev and Bivol on it last night. Like, it would have been amazing. So we want to see it next. Like. Someone's on mute.
You're right, Murray.
Oh, yeah. The neighbor was mowing there. So for a second, I was holding on mute.
Is that a fucking metaphor for something?
No, it's literally they're doing yard work. So, I don't know. I'm just thinking, as far as it goes, I have from recent events, I would have two questions going into this fight away from what we normally would have. One, I'm wondering how Bivol's going to deal with Beterbiev's jab. And maybe that was always a question, but I think with the success Zinad had last night, I think it's an even more interesting question. And two, will the problems that Beterbiev is dealing with in his knee make it so that Bivol and his mobility will ultimately control the fight? I think that could really be the story one way or the other.
Yes. So let's unpack that. in terms of Bivol, Beterbiev's knee, we have to assume someone like Beterbiev's going to come back fit, strong, and capable. But I think the size of the ring will be important in that one too. So we won't know until that's finalised. I think Bivol will know how to judge his distance. I think he'll understand timing, space, angles. But I just think that's something that Bivol brings to the table. He's very good at that. But what makes this fight so intriguing is we know that Beterbiev's ever so good at shutting space down. And we know that he doesn't do it on a slight or an angle. He does it like we spoke about, like a good golfer. His core, his trunk follow him everywhere. So he's very thick set, he's very strong, and he pushes you into corners and into that narrow spaces, and he forces you to work. So he's going to force Bivol to work in that fight. I've always fancied Beterbiev in that one. I think he's got every attribute you need to beat a Bivol, and Bivol's a very good fighter. But something that's interesting, and we've got to, before we downplay Bivol's performance last night, I was sitting with a friend who commented on Zinad's jab, and Richie Woodall was talking it up as well. At the end of the first round, Zinad threw 75 punches, landed 17. Bivol threw 24, landed 16. So Bivol's accuracy was like in the high 80s, and Zinad's was down in the low 40s. So I think when you've got a fighter with such a good ring IQ like Bivol, who knows how good he is and knows how good his opponent is, I think he allows Zinad last night to get shots off. And I think he used Zinad's constant activity and his punch output against him. If if Lyndon Arthur had kept throwing punches, I think Bivol would have got to Lyndon, but he didn't. He was reactive and not proactive. So Bivol just took his time and made sure that his distance was how he wanted it. Last night, with Zinad constantly throwing, it allowed Bivol to find the distance very quickly on the back of what Zinad was doing. So I wouldn't read too much into Zinad's proactivity and the fact that Bivol let him get away with an awful lot of work last night. I think that was engineered.
Possibly so. And I mean, at the end of the day, he got him out of there quick. No real harm done to him, so he's in good shape for a fight just around the corner. Maybe that would ultimately to Bivol was probably nothing more than a hard sparring session where he got paid handsomely. So kind of a win, I guess, especially if he's just better prepared coming down for the next fight. So that was a fantastic card. There was a card on DAZN that I missed. What was that?
Did you talk about Ford Ball at the start, Molly?
We did. That's what we kicked it off with, because I think we collectively thought that was probably the most entertaining fight of the night. But feel free to get your take in on that.
Oh yeah, well, I would love to, because that was, for me, that was the highlight. I mean, that was I haven't enjoyed a fight for a long, long time as much as I enjoyed that. I know there was a bit of talk about the scores, and I know a number of people thought Ford deserved the benefit of the doubt that he did the cleaner work. But I thought 115, 113, either way or a draw was fair enough.
And I saw next to no one who scored it wider than that. Like it was truly just a few swing rounds in there where you pick your poison.
Yeah.
Cole Frampton on TNT, he had it an absolute landslide for Nick Ball.
Carl, I said to Steve, after 6, Frampton had Ball up 5-1, and I just said to Steve, I wouldn't go that far, but
some of the people in our chat had him up 6-0, Dom. It was sad. I was very disappointed in some people in their scoring this weekend within the Nutters group.
Yeah, it was I had him about 4-2 up after 6. I know some people had it 3-3, but I thought Ford robbed Habit. I think I was reading after the fight, after the show was over, I saw him tweeting out. I think he made a very good point. He said Ford would be regretting standing and trading with Ball early on and not using his movement the way he did in the last third of the fight. It seemed that once he started to use his feet and get on the stick more and keep it long, that he was having a lot more success later on in the fight. I think it was sometime after round about the 8th round, I noticed he started to change the way he was fighting, because up until then, Ball was having real joy with that left uppercut that he was finishing every combination on, and Ford was shaking his head after, but it was still landing. You know, in the context of scoring the rounds. But I think Ford, I would love to see a rematch actually, but it's unlikely that'll happen with Ford's. With the weight, Ford will probably move up to 130. But I'm a fan of Ball, and I think Andy and myself were sort of high on him for quite a while before he broke through in the Vargas fight. And I think you have to put the context of the fact that you have to remember Ball's only 5'2", and with that in mind, with those disadvantages of height and reach, the fact that he's competing so well, with those disadvantages, it's a real testament to, I think, what a good fighter he is. And I mean, how tough is he? I mean, how fit and how tough is he? I mean, Ford is a really dangerous puncher. He really gets great length on the punches, and there was a few times where you could see he was really getting through with some, you know, really sharp looking body shots and long hooks, and it'll be interesting to see how he can, you know, how he does up at 130. But as for Ball, I would love to see Ball in with a Bernardo Lopez. I think that would be I think that would just be a great clash of styles, and you know, hopefully with Aram, you know, Bernardo Lopez with top rank with Aram's relationship with Frank Warren, hopefully there's a good chance.
Oh yeah, that fight is actually makeable through the politics of boxing.
Yeah, it's one of those that should be made. Although, having said that, Matty, given how exciting that fight was, I'd say the Saudis they'll be pretty keen to get Ball back out there for some of these big cards. But I think Ball needs a break now. I mean, that was you know, not long after the Vargas fight, and he went straight back in there. So we probably won't see him until later on in the year. Probably, you know, he could be on the Fury Usyk 2 undercard if that happens. But I mean, he's always, someone said there in the chat, you know, he's always in good fights, and you know, the fights are going to be there's going to be great action. I mean, after 3 rounds of that fight last night, it was just, you felt like you'd watched 10 rounds. It was it was just great stuff, and I thought Ford showed real class in his speech afterwards. He didn't throw the toys out of the pram. He accepted it with real grace.
Yeah, with those paydays, it's easier.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true. But you know, I thought he other fighters would have maybe not been so magnanimous despite the payday.
Yeah,
they've been good all week. Them two boys. They've been a class act, the pair of them.
Yeah. There's honestly 2 fights for that I didn't think of earlier for Ball that I think are interesting. One would be him against Espinosa if Espinosa is successful in his defense coming up here. Like a 6 foot tall guy against Nick Ball. That's very interesting. Just the optics of it. See how that one looks. You know, I know Ray Vargas is tall, but he's not as tall as Espinosa. And the other one is, you know, even though he'd have to be a substantial underdog coming into it, wouldn't it be interesting to see Nick Ball in the Inoue sweepstakes should he decide to come up to 126 sometime next year? That also intrigues me.
I disagree slightly with what Ames. You've got Ames saying Ford's desire wasn't there. I thought he showed quite a bit of hunger the way he actually hung in the fight. I mean, I had said to Steve before the fight that I was worried for Ford that the struggle with making the weight might actually come back to haunt Ford in the late rounds, and I was actually pleasantly surprised from a Ford perspective that his stamina held up as well as it did. And if anything, it looked like after 8 or 9 rounds, Ball was the one whose the intensity of his work rate dropped a lot. And just going back to what I quoted about Rob Tabbett saying, Tabbett said, Ford would regret not moving more early in the fight. But, you know, it could have been the case that the intensity and pressure that Ball was mustering in that earlier part of the fight prevented Ford from moving as much as he maybe would have liked. But just such a great fight. And, you know, would love to see it again if Ford wasn't moving up. But,
yeah. There's still a lot of fights to be made, though, and we have some fights coming up here. We are previewing 2 weeks of action here. I'm sure I'll miss a card. When we get to the end of this, if we got time, I'll ask you guys if there's something that I might have missed. So there's not going to be a show next week. We are going to take that week off, but we'll kick it off with Wednesday's Pro Box action. Now, this main event has changed in the last week, and I think, although I was interested in the fight before with Butayev coming back to fight Guido Schramm, I actually like this change better. I think it's more competitive on paper. Vladimir Hernandez against Guido Emmanuel Schramm, who we've seen on Showbox many times or Pro Box many times. This fight actually, I think, will be very entertaining. The rest of the card, there's a couple of fights, but I think this might be one of their weaker cards on paper in recent memory. Abel Gonzalez against Alarons Reynolds. They're both undefeated super middleweights. That could be interesting, but we will see. But yeah, Vladimir Hernandez against Guido Schramm this Wednesday on Pro Box. I think that main event is going to be a solid affair. Then, let's see here. On Friday night, the 7th, this card, they have everything listed in a weird order here on BoxRec, but we'll go through it. This is the card headlined by Adrian Broner against Blair Cobbs. Also on this one, Dorticos is coming back against 19-9 Alan Campa. You're going to have a battle of undefeateds between Antonio Perez and Antonio Williams. Which Antonio has got to go? Ha! And Michael Hunter against Cassius Chaney. Both of those guys have one defeat on their ledger. That one could be I think, honestly, the only fight that seems to have any interest to me on that one, I got to tell you, Rob, with all the pre-fight antics, Broner against Cobbs, I actually think could be a decent fight on this card.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking that the biggest pity about this promotion is that it hasn't happened during the AB Apex on a Showtime or HBO, because it's on Don King TV, which means no cunt's going to see it unless you're watching it on the Fire Stick. But imagine having this fucking press run in the fucking HBO 24/7 era, where it's like, both fighters have come from depraved backgrounds. Both fighters have had to overcome adversity. Some manifest themselves in foul and crass humor. Others manifest themselves in ventriloquist dummies.
That's a great Liev Schreiber. That's a great Liev Schreiber impression there.
Fantastic, that was, Rob.
Really makes you miss 24/7.
You get me? Dun, dun, dun. It would have been like a cliffhanger. Like, Blair Cobbs is mad as a mad bastard, man. He's coming to the fucking press conference doing to shut that soft ass shit up with a fucking Sesame Street pub with a Adrian Broner. If this had been under the lights, it would have been fucking viral by now. But it's a fucking rinky-dink Don King promotion in 2024. Don is hanging on. AB is still talking about fucking banging strippers and that at the press conference. His stick is old with a fucking bear belly bigger than mine at 46. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're getting ready for a prize fight. I think I'm with you, Matty. I think it might be an understated fucking decent fight. It's, AB is fucking box office. It's a pity his career went the way it went. Some would say it's deserved. Probably, like, you can't hide in boxing. You get what you deserve in a lot of cases. Like, it can be rough and it can be cruel, and fellas can do everything right and still come up short. But if you take the kind of shortcuts that Adrian Broner has taken in his career, you're going to end up on a Don King promotion in 2024 fighting a fella that has a ventriloquist dummy of you. So, having said all that, like, I would love AB to get himself one more big fight, possibly against Devin Haney or something like that, and just fucking turn the lights out on him and have his fucking moment of redemption, and him and Marcus Maidana come in the ring and like cheer him out. It'd be fucking amazing. Like, but it's not going to happen. But if I was pushed for a fucking winner on that, I couldn't tell you who would be the favorite between Blair Cobbs and Adrian Broner in 2024. Who the fuck knows?
I got to tell you, if Cobbs is an underdog, I think he's worth putting a punt on, because Broner is he's getting older. He's gets fat in between fights. So much of his training has got to have been done on cardio. Cobbs can have a decent output. Broner doesn't punch with you very much, and especially not now. I think Cobbs has this one. That's just my feeling. That one is going to be a Don King card this Friday. So I think you'll have to pay for that one. I will not. Let's see here. And then on Saturday,
fucking saying a lot of you're not paying for it. Jesus Christ, Fox must be in the toilet.
Isn't that the fucking truth?
I was just about to say, Matty. I thought you were saying the Don King card was on Pro Box. If only.
God, I don't think it's better than most of their Wednesday cards. So yeah, they probably want $40 for that. Just basically
wasn't the Dubois fight? Well, who was the fight that Don King put on with Dubois and the heavyweight fight in Florida there? Who was it that Dubois fought?
I think it was who I just mentioned. What's his bucket? I closed
Don
the
King
window.
and Adrian Broner is a match made in Go Fight
Michael Hunter,
isn't it? Like
no, it wasn't Hunter, Matty. It was someone else. Who was the heavyweight? It was Don King.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
It was in some mad arena. It wasn't even an arena. It was like a bingo hall or something.
I think it's where they play Hialeah.
Yeah,
in Florida.
That was a weird setup, I think.
Very. Hialeah is a very cool game, though. If you like violence coming from just winging things at each other. Let's see here.
Was that Trevor Bryant, Dom?
Yeah, I think that's
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Des. All right. Let's see here. Saturday, Puerto Rican Day Parade event. Don King is throwing his chips on Xander Zayas. He'll be taking on Patrick Teixeira. Not necessarily a big step up, but I think a step up. Also on that card, Bruce Carrington against Enrique Vivas. Vivas is a decent test. Tiger Johnson taking on Tariq Zaina. Tariq did well enough in his last fight, suffering defeat, to put him in there again, I guess. Let's see here. You got Andy Dominguez Velasquez against Christopher Rios, both with one defeat on their ledgers. Jahai Tucker getting back in there against Quincy Lavaez. And anything else interesting? Yeah, I'd say that's as much to talk about. Anything in particular that caught your eye on that one, Des?
No, not really. It's at the Garden, isn't it? And it's a Bob Arum show, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, probably the small room, I'm guessing, with this card.
Yeah, nothing jumps at me on that one, Matty.
Yeah,
I would keep an eye on Carrington. He's featherweight, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, just in the context of what we saw last night, and he's a top-ranked featherweight, so there's another, Bernardo Lopez top-ranked featherweight. Just thinking of future fights for the likes of Ball, that'll be one to keep an eye on. I think he's highly touted, Carrington, amongst top-ranked.
He's a Brooklyn kid, so yeah, he can fight.
Yeah, and he's done well. I think there's been a lot of that Olympic class have definitely let us down. As far as seeing where they're going, but he's one of the ones that's been pretty stellar throughout his career so far. But Tiger Johnson is still undefeated too, and Tariq Zaina, he'll give you some rounds potentially. He can box a bit, so that'll be an interesting enough fight on that, and that's going to be on this Saturday, the 8th. Let's see here. Going to jump all the way a week from then. Let's see here. We're going to be going on over to London. Let's see here. We'll work our way up to the top because we know what the top is. We're going to have Dan Aziz getting back in there after the first defeat of his career against, this is a hell of a name, Hrgovic Sep. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm almost positive I'm saying that wrong. Too many consecutive consonants for my taste. Ben Whitaker back out against Iworetse Ezra Aranyeka. With the WBA gold belt on the line, 2 undefeated fighters. I have no idea about Aaron Yeka, so I'll talk to you boys about that maybe. Isaac Chamberlain taking on Jack Massey with the Commonwealth British Commonwealth Cruiser belt on the line, as well as the EBU Cruiserweight title as well. So we'll get to the main event in a second. What off of that undercard tickled your fancy, Mr. Kelly?
Fucking none of it. Probably watch Ben Whitaker. I think Ben Whitaker can be one of these guys who brings eyes to the sport, but I have to see how good he is. I don't want to repeat shit that I've said before about him. It irritated me the first time I saw him when I seen him clowning the journeyman. Then when I saw the kind of viral reaction to it, I kind of see the reason he's doing it. But I think there's still obvious fucking question marks about the guy. He has talent, but we'll have to see if he's fighting anyone that can bring something out of him. And if you're overmatched too often early in your career, it can often fucking come back and haunt you down the line. But that story is fucking a long way off being found out, I think. So he should have some eye-catching moments, but we see how he gets on. And other than that, I couldn't give a fuck about this undercard, being honest with you.
Well, I'll tell you something. So Mr. Iwardhase Ezra Aranyeka, he's from Nigeria originally. He has fought next to nobody. His alias is the African King, but he does have 10 knockouts in his 12 victories. He's done a little bit of work at super middleweight, and this is obviously going to be at light heavyweight. He has done a fair bit of his fights at light heavyweight as well. He has only fought, let's see here, 1, 2.
We sticking him in a parlay. Is that what you're saying?
3 fighters with a winning record at this point in time. But I don't know.
I don't know if he's in the parlay, is he?
I think I wouldn't touch this one with a 10-foot pole unless you're putting literally just a couple of bucks on Aaron Yucca, who's probably going to be a huge underdog, because at 12-0 with 10 knockouts, yeah, I don't know, man. You never know, especially with Whitaker getting cocky in there. I don't know. I wouldn't want to get cocky against somebody.
It'd be hilarious, but it's a long shot. They're bringing in guys that he's going to fight against. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Des, did you have some thoughts on this? I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I like. I think obviously Ben wins, and it'd be nice to see Dan come back. Dan Aziz, I'm a big fan of Dan, but I like the chief support, Isaac and Jack Massey. Now, I think Isaac wins, but I think Jack Massey could be a really good tune-up fight for Isaac if he's going to fight the winner of the main event. So I think the main event is a good fight, but I'm interested to see how Isaac deals with Jack Massey. And Jack Massey's a fighter with a lot of ambition, and I've seen Jack Massey acquit himself really well against Joe Parker. Look what Joe Parker's gone on to do.
Yeah, that's and right. He was holding his own against Parker 100%.
He held his own. But more importantly, Jack Massey, I was there at York Hall. I thought Jack Massey just nicked a decision against Riakpour. Riakpour got the decision, and good luck to him. It was a close fight. But there's life in Jack Massey, and it'll be a good fight with Isaac.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Dom, what was your anything you like off of that undercard?
Yeah, I like the Mossy and Chamberlain fight on Whitaker. Yeah, I'll be always tuning into Whitaker just to see if there's any slight chance that he might sort of cut back on the antics, but I think that's a long shot. But yeah, on to the main event, Matty.
All right, in the main event, a rematch. Chris Billiam-Smith trying to get revenge over Richard Riakpour with the WBO cruiserweight title on the line. Des, does this one go differently?
It could do. I'm not quite sure if Angel Fernandez, and if Riakpour's changed trainer, someone let me know. But if he's still with Angel Fernandez, I sometimes think Angel Fernandez can overcomplicate things. And with Riakpour, you've got a big, strong puncher. And I've seen Angel sometimes work on other areas, and you think, just get this kid to walk forward and to throw his big right hand. Now, if Angel Fernandez gets Riakpour to overthink this, I think it will allow Billiam-Smith to press the fight and win an awful lot of rounds, and he could win a decision. However, with Riakpour, you are dealing with a big, big puncher. And when he lands, I can see Billiam-Smith going. Now, someone remind me, I can see the kid's face. Who was the last kid that Billiam-Smith beat? The good European level fighter.
I thought didn't he beat a Coley last?
Masterneck
there you go. Yeah. And Andy was all on Masterneck actually taking him out, and he had his moments. He definitely.
Now I've got to tell you, Masterneck had his moments in that fight. So if that's the gauge, you can't let Riakpour land with the as frequently as what Masterneck landed. That's a really big problem. But I've got a lot of confidence in Shane McGuigan to devise the right plan. I think he'll get Billum Smith to sort of keep getting close and maybe just off centre, so that Richard can't let his long levers go and land with big shots. But it's going to be a real hard 12 rounds to negotiate for Billum Smith. But if they get their tactics right, if Angel Fernandez is slightly off of his tactics, I think Billum Smith could win a decision.
Interesting. Yeah, thing about Billum Smith, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Rob, but I swear when he fought Okoli, he was landing some punches from some weird distances and some odd angles that seemed to really catch Okoli off guard. So yeah, if he could get inside of that power from Reactpor, ultimately, I guess he just has to kind of make it awkward and sneak a few shots in there, make it weird for Reactpor. What are you thinking, Rob?
Well, I'm thinking a lot of things, Matty. I'll be honest with you. As my lecturer in fucking third level told me, I'm a tangential thinker. So I'm thinking this. I've been a fan of Billum Smith since he got the close decision in the first Tommy McCarthy fight. Tommy McCarthy, friend of the pod, obviously. But fuck all that shit. Richard Reactpor is supposed to be banging Madonna, ain't he? That's what the fucking rumor is. I don't know. When I saw the picture, she was giving him a lap dance. I thought she was just after adopting him. But no, she's fucking...
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
She's going out with him. So if I was Billum Smith for the first time ever, and I'm taking you back to the days of the old estate that I used to live in. So one of the neighbors was after one of the kids' mas was after ending up with one of the kids' dads, and we're all at a christening, right? And we're all about like 18, 19. And we're at the christening for one of the lads' little sister's baby, and she's had the baby at 14 or 15, right? She was young, right? Let's put it that way, right? So they've had the ceremony and all that. We're in the fucking hotel and we're waiting for the DJ to get started. So the first fucking song he plays is "You're so fine and you're mine." And one of my mates, who's the sharpest bastard of all time, he's fucking cocked it from the start, and I'm just looking at his face and I'm waiting for him to say something, and the whole table is silent, and he's just gone, "You some fucking cheat playing that in here like a virgin." So Chris Billum Smith should come to the ring to Like a Virgin to spook Richard Reactpor and do the fucking ultimate mind games and beat him in the rematch. But sorry to take it all the way around the house.
You brought us all the way to Value of the Week material, Rob. Yeah, we're not quite there. Thanks for spoiling it.
On a serious note, I think Billum Smith just needs to make some small adjustments and he could get the win here. I think he's a tough fucking operator, very good in-fighter, good with short shots, and I think he just needs to try and put the pressure on Reactpor from an earlier stage of the fight, try and get a rhythm at an earlier stage, and I think he could win a rematch. And I like Billum Smith actually, so I'm rooting for him in this one.
Yeah, I expect a pretty interesting fight on this one too. I definitely think it's going to be worth watching. I sure hope that this is one of the fights that gets picked up on Peacock. So we will see how that goes. But Dom, what are your thoughts on this main event? What direction are you going, and what really does seem to be a very, very competitive fight once again?
Very intriguing, Matty, and I was just looking at something the other day there. It caught my eye. I was reading something about the fight, and I was surprised actually at how old Reactpor is. He's 34, and I had just assumed that he was younger. Now, I know it's different with guys at these higher weights. 34 is not as old as like a sort of welterweight who's 34, but I think the McGuigans have done a very good job with Billum Smith, because I think the feeling around boxing was that at the time when Billum Smith entered the McGuigan camp, Okoli was really the of the bigger weight fighters that they had. Okoli was the one that they were plowing most attention into, and there was a feeling that Billum Smith may have been brought in as a bit of cannon fodder. But over time, they really, I think that genuinely improved him, and that's always the test, I think, of a training setup. You get these sort of fighters like Taylor or Frampton who have come from very good amateur backgrounds, and I'm not saying they're the finished product, but you're working with a lot of good raw material. Whereas Billum Smith, they've really developed him very well. if I'm forced to
bet
pick,
the draw, Dom. Bet the draw.
I think Riakporhe might stop him late. I think Des is right. He's a big puncher and he's especially dangerous to the body, and I think that might prove telling. Billum Smith is very tough. He is very, very tough. So there's that dynamic. Is he tough enough to take? I think he can take the shots, but I would like to see him. I would like to see Billum Smith. I would like
not
to see
take
him
the shots.
Yeah, I would like to see him. I would like to see him and constantly, trying to take less shots. And work his way in. Without taking as much flack as he has in previous fights. So I just think I would go for Riakporhe for a late stoppage, perhaps. But yeah, very interesting fight, and it's great that it's probably one of the best all British fights I think that we're probably going to get this year.
Well, what I would say, guys, is these guys have already fought before, and it was a split. And I think Billum Smith has learned a lot more. He's a much better fighter now than perhaps what Riakporhe's learned, and he's shown himself to be now. I'm not saying Riakporhe hasn't got better, but I think there's been a lot more growth in Billum Smith. So,
well, has Riakporhe had a fight where you think he had a chance to really grow since then, Des? That's
yeah, against Madonna.
Yeah, I think I'm not knocking away they've brought Riakporhe on, because I think Riakporhe's fought good guys. He's fought the Dion Jumas and he's fought the Jack Masses. But I think when you look at, say, Billum Smith, and if you look at the work he's done with his new trainer, and he's made a lot of adjustments to his career, and he's made a lot of sacrifices, and he has fought a Masternak, although I didn't like that fight for him. I didn't like the way he approached it, but he has beaten a Masternak. Great win against the Coley, great win against Chamberlain. He come through the Tommy McCarthy fights. He's already lost to this guy, so you'd have thought he's got a lot more balance going into the second one. It could be Billum Smith is a bit more geared up for this fight, and he's going in as the world champion, so that does an awful lot for you as well. I'm kind of sort of touching on a bit what Rob said and Dom said. If you get your tactics right, and it's going to be a lot about tactics, I think Billum Smith can get over the line on this one. But you are in with a puncher who's got a lot of ambition, who's got a lot going for him as well. It's a genuinely good fight. So we'll see what happens. But if you ask me to put a fiver on it, I'd probably just edge to everything I've just said and go Billum Smith on points.
The other thing I would say, Matty, just in closing, is we've joked about it, about the Madonna thing, but I think there was a thing I saw a number of months ago about Riakporhe, and he was on the front cover of some fashion magazine. I can't remember what it was, but I just got the sense, if you compare the two characters, but you get the sense that Billum Smith is just completely dedicated and tunnel visioned. And I'm not saying Riakporhe isn't dedicated, but I suspect and I wonder that there might be maybe a few distractions. Certainly a few more than Billum Smith has, and that could be something to remember if the fight is going down the stretch. I think
Riakporhe needs inside of a former fighter to prepare himself for this one. Marcos Maidana.
Yeah, we'll get to the value, gentlemen. Hold your horses.
Shut up, Matty. I do the value anytime I feel like it. Okay, Wellington's gone. There's no rules.
Fucking Wellington's leave, and it's turns into a madhouse. It's the Nuthouse. Well, there you go. Anyhow, so we got we're gonna move on over to one of my favorite places, the island of Puerto Rico. And we'll get to the main event. Not a whole lot to look at on here. Let's see here. This is kind of interesting. So you got the 5-0 Yanquiel Rivera Figueroa taking on the 37-4 Victor Efren Sandoval at flyweight with some of those tier belts over on the line there. That could be interesting. Angel Fierro 22-1-2 taking on Alfredo Santiago 14-2. that at 140 pounds. But the one that we're all looking forward to, obviously, Subriel Matias taking on the undefeated Liam Pero, putting up his IBF title that I believe Matias won in a fight for a vacant belt against Jeremias Ponce in what was a fantastic fight before, like most of Matias's opponents, they just quit. They can't take anymore. It's just too freaking much. I'll tell you, I don't. This one does. I think it is interesting because if there's anything we've learned about Liam Pero, it's that this guy can absolutely punch. He destroyed what's his bucket from Ohio the last time out. He's done a good job coming up. He wrecked Brock Jarvis in a round. I think that even though I would definitely go Matias, probably somewhere 6th onward, maybe a little earlier on a good shot. But I do think that Pero is going to land some eye-catching blows until that moment comes, because it's not like Matias is a defensive master. His thing is he will kind of walks through your stuff and just beats the crap out of you.
Yeah, I'm really big on Matias, and has a really hot, heavy-handed, big puncher from Puerto Rico ever lost to an Australian? I'm not sure. I think Rob asked his question once about a Liam. Yeah, has a Mexican ever lost to a Liam? When we was talking about Navarreto versus Liam Wilson or something like, or Valdez versus a Liam Wilson. So I'm going to ask the same question: has a Puerto Rico world champion ever lost to an Australian?
I would say this, unless Jeff Fennick beat any Puerto Ricans, which is
there's
a chance he might have, given the weight he fought up.
maybe. But this Matias is a top draw kid, and he's a big puncher. I'm hot on him. I think he's the one you should avoid in that division at the moment. And there's some really good kids in that division. I hear what you're saying, Matty, and that's the balanced view. Pero he'll come with something. He will land a few shots, and you'd expect him to have a degree of success. But I just can't see him getting past 5 rounds with Matias. I really can't.
Yeah, that's pretty much the choke point for most of these fighters, where it just becomes too much. Their trainers think they're taking too much punishment. Yeah. They themselves think they're taking too much punishment. The guy's a real wrecking machine, Rob. He's a frightening fighter. We don't want to stick on too long. The fighter has lost their life to his hands.
Exactly, yeah.
That's not an easy thing to step into. Just a guy like Pero's just stepping in the ring with him. You got to give him credit. But damn, if he's able to stand in the fire and trade some shots with them, again, this guy's a puncher. I would like to see what happens if he lands clean, because Matias has been down. He was down in his first fight against an onion.
Well, that's the thing. Anyone could be knocked out. Matias is scary, but like you said, he has vulnerabilities. I think he can definitely be hit. Having said that, not just the fact that the fighter lost his life tragically in the ring to him, nearly everybody else that's been up against him has quit. So I would expect that Paro's going to come out, shoot his load, no pun intended, and try and fucking shoot for the bleachers and see if he can land something. And if he doesn't put a dent in Matias, then I could see it being a slow beating until it gets stopped.
It's a good point what Rob said there. If you don't knock him out, they retire. You know, he's a heavy-handed kid, this one.
Yeah, Dom, it's tough to see any outcome other than Matias by knockout. Are you feeling anything different than what the panel has said so far?
No, I'm not, Matty. I think it'll be a stoppage in the second half of the fight. Actually, do you know what? I think it might go a bit later. It might go maybe 9-10 rounds. I think Paro, he needs to channel, Matty. I'll get your juices flowing here. He needs to channel the spirit, the Aussie spirit of one of your heroes, Michael Katsidis. You need to channel that sort of mindset and attitude. But you know, this guy's one of my favorite fighters, Matias. I think he's mustard. And you're right, Matty. You know, they're all avoiding him. I was listening to Jack Cottrell after his victory last week, and they were putting names to him about, you know, Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, and One
they
name
don't
that
go
was
near. They don't go near Mats. They don't even say his name, do they?
conspicuous by his absence. The name of Matias. They just everyone. They all know. They know what the story is like, and I think they'll try to age him out. But you know, it'll be interesting actually because Cottrell might struggle to get a fight with any other world champion. Just on that subject, I mean, who else is going to give Cottrell a shot? Cottrell is the sort of fighter that you don't fight unless you really have to, because he's awkward. He's hard to look good against. It could be a case that Matias and Cottrell are sort of brought together by
lack of options.
Exactly.
Dom, I agree. I don't know where Jack Cattrall goes. I don't want to go over old ground, but that's why I think they just reroute to. It's not a fight I particularly want to see, but that's why I think they take the third Josh Taylor fight, because there ain't nowhere else for Jack Cattrall to go.
Well, if you're Cottrell, I mean, if you put the choice to Cottrell, would you rather fight the trilogy against Taylor or Matias?
He'd tell you he wants to fight Matias. He'd tell you he wants to win a world title, and I don't doubt him. But Josh Taylor's really good money, and it's a very winnable fight for him, isn't it?
It's probably more money than Matias. And the thing is, the Matias fight could easily be made because they're both under the zone with Eddie Hearn. You'd like to think Cottrell would take the Matias fight, but I was watching just on the point of Molly saying this guy a few years ago people talked about Lomachenko making guys quit. Well, this guy has sort of established a very similar reputation. Although Loma did it by dispiriting guys with his technical superiority.
They just couldn't touch him.
Yeah, this guy does it a more matter of fact sort of way. Just sort of he bludgeons guys. I was watching on the Pro Box card the other week, Matty, the week before last. I think Dukenbaev was on. Who was Duke? He was fighting. Who was it? He was fighting, Matty.
Red Catch.
Red Catch, yes, and obviously Red Catch has nothing left. But Dukenbaev's a fighter that I love watching, and I remember back to the fight he had with Matias. I mean, Matias just he just put manners on Dukenbaev. I mean, Dukenbaev can really hit. He's a good fighter. And Matias was just too much for him. And I just hope Matias, I echo what Steve used to say when he was on the call. I hope he gets the fights, the big fights before he goes over the hill.
Yeah, he's already 32.
31, 32. He's got 2 years probably of his prime to go. I fear the guys like Teofimo, guys like that will. I mean, that would be what a fight that would be. I mean, Teofimo against Matias, that would be.
I think Teo is the guy who I would give the best chance of beating him outside of some guys just landing a big punch, and I think that's because to beat Subriel Matias, I think you have to be supremely athletic. I think it's all about your ability to cut, move around, keep your hands moving, and because he doesn't punch with you a whole lot. He kind of high guards you and then just starts pummeling you. But I just feel like Lopez doesn't do well against guys who sit on the back foot. If you come to Lopez, he will chew you up.
And Latinos bring the best out in each other as well. Matias will bring the best out in Lopez and vice versa.
I'll be just on a tangent. I know Rob likes tangents, and you're asking Des when was the last time an Australian beat a Puerto Rican. Well, I was actually right when I said Jeff Vanek, because in March 1988 he knocked out 25-1 Victor Callejas. So there you go. That Victor Callejas, he was the last time an Australian got one. Well, as far
36 years in the making.
Can I give you another job? Can I give you another job, Dom? Because last time Rob said no Liam has ever beaten a Valdez. I started looking up Liam Brady's international career, and I was looking at has he played a Colombian team, has he played a Mexican team, has he played an El Salvador team, and I never found one. So maybe you could find me a Liam that has beaten a Valdez as well.
Beat the Brazilian team 1-0 at Lansdowne Road, 1987. Who won?
Was he still playing then, Rob? Didn't know.
What was that?
Was Liam Brady still playing then?
He scored a winner. I would hope so.
Oh, Jesus. Anyhow, this will take us too far. So that one is going to be a week from Saturday on DAZN. Now
Matty, just last, that has the potential. Although I think Matias will run through him, that'll be great action, that fight.
I'm telling you, Pero is going to land some shots in that fight. People better watch it. That kid can punch. And it was Montana Love that I was thinking of that he smacked around and knocked out last time out. So anyhow, look for that one. Pick your time. Of course, they're going to put these cards opposite each other. This will be on Amazon Prime pay-per-view. We'll start at the bottom, work our way up. The aforementioned Carlos Adames fighting Terrell Gaucher, who is somehow ranked at middleweight. The WBC belt is going to be on the line. Gary Antoine Russell putting that undefeated record on the line against fellow undefeated Alberto Puello. We'll also have David Benavidez taking on Alexander Gvozdyk. Let's go through those, and then obviously we will talk about the main event. Rob, what are your thoughts on that undercard?
Sorry, I was charging the phone. Give me a quick rundown of the undercard again.
I hate you people sometimes. Carlos Adames, Terrell Gaucher, Gary Antoine Russell, Alberto Puello, David Benavidez, Alexander Gvozdyk for the undercard.
Yeah, Benavidez and Gvozdyk I'm interested in. I think Gvozdyk will pose a problem to a degree, but Benavidez will probably take him out in the second half of the fight. The other ones, I could fuck about Gary Antoine Russell.
I think that's a good fight. I think that's actually a pretty good fight on paper there, because that's the Russell brother that can punch. Puello, not the biggest puncher, but he's pretty experienced at this point in time.
Right, we go Antoine Russell for the stoppage then, that one.
Yeah. Yeah, but I Rob, on that one, the Gvozdyk Benavidez one, I know Gvozdyk is getting back into it, but this is a huge jump compared to the competition he's fought in this comeback. I mean, he's 5-6 years removed from the beating that he took from Beterbiev. So I don't know. This is just a big step. I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if Gvozdyk gets stopped inside of 6 or 7, kind of like Demetrius Andrade. So, Des, what are your thoughts on the undercard?
Well, Adames is going to be a WBC world champion, so we've got him. He'll be a new world champion at middleweight. I think.
No, that he was interim, and they upgraded him. I think they stripped Charlo.
Oh, so he's already a champion now.
Yeah. I think the ridiculous to this is Gaucher getting a shot. Maybe he's had a fight or two at middleweight, but he's he lost to Zoo 3 fights ago. I don't like it.
We've seen him whenever Gaucher steps up, he gets beat, but you can't stop him though. So I think if Adames can stop him, that'd be a really good statement. But I think Adames wins on points, and as you just corrected me, he's already a WBC champion. Benavidez and Gvozdyk, that's an interesting one. I'm hot on Benavidez. I think he's brilliant, but I've always been a fan of Gvozdyk. Last time I backed against a Ukrainian was last week, and he proved me wrong against Navarrete. I'm going to go with Benavidez because I just think Gvozdyk has been active at a much lower level for the last 4 years, and before that he got the Beterbiev good hiding, and then he had a long time off. So I'm not sure if any version of Gvozdyk ever beats this version of Benavidez, but I certainly don't think this version of Gvozdyk beats him. Are we talking about the main event or just the undercard?
Just the undercard. Just the undercard right now. We'll get to the main event here in a second. Yeah, I mean, this is the 4th fight in Gvozdyk's comeback, which started last year in February. So you're talking 16 months in. His first fight was against 34-2 Josue Obando, who had lost his last 5. Then he took on Bolotniks, and he stopped him. And then he took on 28-4 Isaac Rodriguez, took him out in a couple of rounds.
He had a busy 2023, didn't he? So he's got himself active, but I'm not quite sure that level on the back of what he's done gets him in this one. Do you?
No, I feel like if he had a fight against somebody ranked, a legitimate top 15-ish guy at 175 in January or February of this year, I would have thought that this fight was more interesting. I still hadn't seen enough from Gvozdyk to know. I mean, because that was he was out of the ring for 4 years, or well, 3.5 years. It was a long time to be out of the ring, and I know he's experienced and he has a deep amateur pedigree, but Benavidez is a different animal. He's not a 3-round amateur fighter. This is a 12-round wrecking machine.
Yeah. Interesting. The dynamic of these brilliant fighters. So we know how good Adonis Stevenson was. He was exceptional. And Gvozdyk put Adonis Stevenson in hospital, and then Beterbiev put Gvozdyk in hospital. It just at the top end of light heavyweight, it's incredibly, the skill level, the competition is so high. I think Benavidez is too hot at the moment, personally.
Yeah, I just get the feeling that he does it, and he does it probably within 6 rounds. I just think he's too much for Gvozdyk at this point, who is 37 years old at this point in time as well. But at least he's a person who can measure up in some size to Benavidez. Dom, your thoughts on the undercard?
Yeah, I think you just hit your nail on the head, Matty, about the size. It's just going to be interesting to see how Benavidez gets on with someone who can match him for size. But it's just the activity that Gvozdyk has had these last few years. It's just not enough to think give him the chance. I think I really think he should have retired permanently after Beterbiev, but he's done what so many fighters before him have done. He's not been able to resist the lure to come back. I think he really struggled with Benavidez's his work rate. And I wouldn't be surprised if Benavidez does it inside 6, as you say. I think more likely he's probably a late stoppage. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he's like at light heavy, up at the higher weight, with guys that are maybe the same size as him, with potentially a view to fighting the winner of Bivol Beterbiev.
Yeah, I don't know. I will, if Gvozdyk doesn't control the first 2-3 rounds of the fight, I'll feel confident that Benavidez is going to take him out early. I think that Gvozdyk has got to show him his size, his power, and he's got to not get trapped early on in order to really make it to the later rounds and potentially make it into a real fight. But it's definitely decent undercard fare, that's for sure. But the main event, Gervonta Davis taking on Frank Martin, 135 pounds. I always forget if there's a belt on. WBA is on the line for this one. Not that it matters. We know Davis. We know his skill, his pedigree, his power. Rob, Martin had ducked a fight earlier this year in an eliminator against. Trying to remember. Do you guys remember who that was against? What's that?
Shakur Stevenson. No.
It wasn't the fight with Shakur that he jumped out of. You might be right.
I'm pretty sure it was Shakur. Yeah, and everyone was like saying, "Oh, Shakur can't get a fight. He's ducking XYZ." Somebody, but I'm pretty sure it was him. Maybe it could have been Devin Haney either.
Yeah, I can't quite remember, but I don't know. Martin has been reasonably inactive. Excuse me. Jesus, he's been reasonably inactive, and he's been left an opportunity on the table, and I just kind of wonder, considering all this, yeah, he's got a good win over Michel Rivera, who was a good enough prospect himself, but this is a huge step up. Although he does have a good stick, he might trouble Davis for a while. I'm thinking Gervonta KO 7-8 rounds, Rob. That's just my hunch.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the consensus, isn't it? People haven't seen too much of Frank Martin. We've seen him move a couple of people around. What does that do under the lights at the top level against Gervonta Davis, against the guy who's going to ultimately stalk you and wait you out until he gets his moment to freeze you up? I've been very high on Gervonta Davis all his career, from the time he knocked out Pedraza to the time he came to the UK to all the way up in his career. But there's a lot of optics when it comes to Gervonta Davis. Yes, face of the sport. They want to have that moniker for him. I think Canelo's still the face of the sport. Adrian Broner made a good point this week about pound for pound lists, and he's talking about Crawford technically is the number one pound for pound. Now you can have arguments there whether you want to have Usyk or you want to have Inoue in there, but you get it. It's interchangeable in terms of talent levels, but in terms of fucking optics and putting asses on seats, Gervonta Davis is a ticket seller. He moved the needle. He took the Ryan Garcia fight at the right time. He got Garcia down the way. He ultimately finished him. But there is question marks over his resume in terms of the opposition he's faced, and is Frank
Lots
Martin.
of smaller guys, lots of older guys.
Yeah, and he gets it's they're carefully maneuvering him while kind of comfortably escaping the criticism about fighting the best guys. So he's on a lot of people's pound for pound lists. I don't know if he's pound for pound. I don't even know if that fucking means anything because his bank account is healthy. I like him as a fighter. I like him. I want to see him at the top of the sport. I want to see him against the biggest names. I want to see him tested. I think now at this stage it's time for fucking Davis to be in big fights. The Garcia was a big fight. He got a lot of crossover fans. He's looking at the cash element, which I can't blame him for. To be honest with you, he's come from fucking the bottom. He's from Baltimore. He's had various fucking problems in his life. He's had a very difficult life. It's not up to me to decide the trajectory of Gervonta Davis's career. But in terms of a legacy that you could leave behind, in terms of excitement, in terms of fucking where you lie in the history books, I want to see him stepping up now because I believe he's in the argument against anybody in and around his weight division. But what's the point in fighting Frank Martin at this stage? Honestly, like he's been on the scene fucking 10 years. Think about it. Davis was on the undercard of the Floyd Manny fight. How many years are we going back for that now? Like that predates my existence on the pod, and I've been here fucking 6-7 years at this stage. So, you know, Davis has been around a long time. It's time to get the exclamation point on his career now.
Yeah, he definitely needs to find one at this point. Ryan Deal throwing in 5 of them. New Zealand Bucks says, has Don revealed better Beetle Beef's hideout location after watching the beating he has coming in the post from Bivol? Well, we'll find out. So, Dom, I'll if there's
I echo what Rob's about Tank. Yeah, I mean yeah, the only thing I've seen of Martin was the fight he had this time. Was it last July against Harrod Union? And I seem to remember there was sort of that wasn't a very convincing performance from him. So yeah, I really, even at this stage, I would still love to see, although it's not the fight that it would have been 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, Tank against Loma, I would take that fight now over this. But yeah, it's I think Davis will probably win by stoppage, and he doesn't tend to stop guys these days. You know, he came over to Britain, he stopped Liam Walsh, and was it 3 rounds? He tends to go 6, 7, 8 rounds with guys now and have a look at them and get comfortable, and then he'll start catching them with big shots. Now I just want to see him. I think he's brilliant. I mean, I think he's a brilliant fighter. I just want to see him.
I think he's the hardest, pound for pound puncher in the sport right now. Since I'd have to call Wilder retired.
He is, but that's although I like big punchers, but that's not why I really like him. He's so, as you would say in the States, Matt, he's so cerebral, more cerebral than he's given credit for, and
absolutely massively underrated boxer, by the way.
Big time underrated, and he's very, very calculating, and he saw what he did with Ryan Garcia, the way he sort of disarmed Ryan Garcia and basically made him reluctant to throw. He's very, very smart fighter, and I just want to see him in with guys that give him the chance to prove that definitively and for all time. So I just sometimes I wonder with the people like Ellerby around him, whoever's making the decisions. I think the worry I have is that they want everything on their terms, and that's going to prevent these fights from happening. For example, it was rumored a few weeks ago there was a story. I think it was actually the weekend of Fury Usyk. The story broke that the WBA, at the insistence of Tank's team, put in some rehydration stipulation for this fight, and then they promptly reversed that when word of the clause got out into the public domain. So I think what the story was, Tank's team were putting pressure on the BA to put this clause in, which hadn't been in the fight contract, but they did manage to persuade the WBA to do it. And then once the WBA started coming under pressure from a few of the guys at boxing scene, Jake Donovan and so forth, they just promptly withdrew it. So that's sort of, you'd sort of wonder, like, why do you need to wait rehydration for fighting someone like Frank Martin?
That's what you want to do. You should have been trying to maneuver for the IBF. If you want a rehydration clause in fights, fight for the IBF title and hold it, and you'll get that.
Yeah, it's just sort of, it's the frustration is, it's like he doesn't need that help. He's good enough to. I don't think he needs those sort of those added advantages. It's it's a similar thing. He had it in the Ryan Garcia fight. It was the same story. He didn't need to have that, whatever the clause was. So yeah, it's I just hope before the end of this year we'll see him in with I mean, just think of, we're just finished talking about Matias. I mean, it's can you see Tank fighting a Matias? I can't. I'm not saying he wouldn't beat Matias, but I just think it's just too much to hope for that we'll see these fights.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's the fucking Mayweather Promotions blueprint. Like, Ellerby is out banging the drum anytime he's fucking presented with any kind of legitimate opposition. Floyd was out early saying he was never going to fight Loma. The timing wasn't right. And again, we're all fans of Tank Davis. We know what he can do. We want to see him in against these upper class guys that are going to fucking really test him and bring out the best in him. But it feels like at this stage of his career, he's been a little bit protected. Like,
yeah, I think so. It's hard not to think that at the minute.
He might be. He might be. Des, let me ask you, if there's two fights where I think I'd be looking for something that, maybe there are issues with Tank and they're trying to potentially protect him a little bit or whatsoever. One was the Barrios fight where he ultimately won. He won by knockout, but there was definitely struggles with the taller man utilizing his jab in an effective manner. And the other one I go back to that caught me off guard a little bit when it happened is the fact that he had to go 12 rounds to stop Yuriorkis Gamboa, who he dropped a couple of times, but who had blown out his Achilles as well. Those two fights stand out to me to why I just have some questions about Tank. I do.
I think sometimes we're a little bit hard on fighters too, because we're all, Rob, myself, Dominic, you, Andy, Steve, we're all, the guys in the chat, we're all really high on Tank. I mean, for me, I know we're all big fans of Roberto Duran. For me, Tank is the closest thing I'm seeing to Roberto Duran in modern day boxing. I think he fits that profile really well. The way he fights, the way he conducts himself, that cavalier attitude. He's a gunslinger. But I think sometimes we judge these guys a little bit harshly. Now, Gamboa was a brilliant fighter. I know when Tank got him, he'd seen better days. But Gamboa was Terence Crawford's coming out fight. Gamboa could really fight. I look at the way he dealt with Ryan Garcia, and then look at the way Garcia dealt with Devin Haney. I think Tank is probably pound for pound. And that don't mean nothing pound for pound, but certainly top 10, maybe even top 5. And I say that because I don't see many people beating him. I don't think Shakur beats him. And by the way, Rob touched on that. Shakur was the one that Frank Martin slipped out of. It was Shakur Stevenson. So I think Tank beats Shakur Stevenson. I think Tank beats Devin Haney. And to answer Dominic's point, or come in at Dominic's point, I think if Tank was to go up and fight Matias, I think he probably beats him as well. I think he's a really good fighter. But when you get a really good fighter like this, we judged Floyd harshly. If I remember people telling me that Marcus Madonna was in for a shout for beating Floyd because he won probably 4 or 5 rounds. I remember when Shane Mosley caught Floyd, people said he gave Floyd a really hard fight. Oscar's the same against foot. We judge our top fighters very harshly, and I think perhaps we do that a bit with Gervonta because he's that good. But if you look at his last,
but is it not the fact that like Floyd had those tests and we could see them in the like Marcus Modena was dangerous.
Yeah.
Shane Mosley could always punch. Maybe he got Shane Mosley at the right time. Like that was always the argument against Floyd, that he was cherry picking or that he got guys at the right time. And you were judging him against Pacquiao. But if you looked at it, maybe Pacquiao, Aaron was smarter in his matchmaking because he got a lot of his bigger victories off guys coming down in weight or off a loss or whatever. But Davis has seemed to navigate his career to this point off. They're not cherry picking opponents, but say like his venture to, was it 147 when he fought, or 140 when he fought Barrios,
that's the only thing I can say, Rob. Is it could be accused, to use the phrase, it could be a bit of a weight bully. That's the only thing I can say about Gervonta.
Let these guys, let's see him in the mix against these guys. Yes, he beat Ryan Garcia, and Ryan Garcia beat Devin Haney, but Ryan Garcia is 10 pounds heavier when he beats Devin Haney.
Correct.
Not saying he's going to beat Gervonta Davis if he's 10 pounds heavier. I think he's still as vulnerable to that shot, and I think he jacked it when. I think he jacked it in the crucial moment against Davis. But like, we need to see Davis. Like, if Davis goes out and he wipes Frank Martin out in 4 rounds next week? What are we proving about Davis? And maybe he don't care about that. Like, we're caring about different things. You get me? Like, he's caring about putting money in the bank. But what do we see from what do we learn from Tank KO and Frank Martin next week?
No, nothing at all. You're absolutely right. And someone mentioned Leonard Ellaby. I think it was you, Rob, or Dominic. And I understand the mentality. It's like, we want to get our kid through this sport, earning as much money as possible, with a really good legacy that he can sit on, and coming out of the game, the other side, looking like a Floyd Mayweather, looking like an Oscar De La Hoya, looking like a Shane Mosley. Now, if you look at the last 14 fights, over half of them have been Tank. I'm talking about. If you look at Tank's last 14 opponents, over half of them have been unbeaten fighters. He's taken O's off of the last 8 of the last 14 guys he's fought, and he's not short on big names, because you've got a Santa Cruz, you've got a Gamboa, you've got a Fonseca, you've got a Pedraza, you've got a Garcia. They're all there. You've got an Isaac Cruz, and look what Isaac Cruz just recently done. But you're right, they are cherry picking and they are getting it on their terms. But I just think that's what the power brokers of boxing do. But to come back on the point Rob just made, I totally agree with Rob. I'd like to see him fight guys on an even keel at his own weight that we know are maybe a 55-45 or a 50-50. Absolutely. And I don't think we learn nothing from him beating Frank Martin. Absolutely correct.
I think the reason why they're looking things on their terms, especially with these rehydration clauses. He started off, I think, didn't he start off at featherweight? Didn't he start off, Matty, as a featherweight?
I thought he was a super featherweight for some reason.
126 was he not?
I thought he was featherweight, but anyway, he was. The thing is, these guys like Teofimo, like Devin Haney, these guys were huge lightweights, and they're when they rehydrate after these fights, say at 140, they're maybe coming into the ring as heavy as 154. And Davis, I think, although the talk is that he struggles even to make lightweight, a lot of these fights have been at catch weights between lightweight and light welter. I think they're worried about fighting guys that have, maybe 20 pounds on him come fight night, and they're able to absorb his punches. That's the only thing I can think of. But when I look at him fight, you think he's able to disarm these guys by the threat of what he has waiting for them if they overstep and come in. And you sort of think, does he not feel that's enough to get him over the line against these guys? So it's interesting, but we're not going to learn anything, I don't think, that we don't already know.
I don't know. He, despite what the scorecard said, he had a lot of trouble with Hector Luis Garcia, who is a southpaw. He has very few southpaws on his resume. Martin does bring that to the table. I want to close out our boxing discussion before the value of the week with this. A very simple question for each and every one of you. So Gvozdyk, Pero, and Frank Martin are all right around 9-2 as underdogs. If I gave you $100 just to freely put on any of them, who do you think is going to take the upset? Des.
Gvozdyk.
Rob.
Martin or Gvozdyk. You're just enticing me with the southpaw talk, but realistically, yeah, probably Gvozdyk. But don't take my word for it. I lost the parlay last night.
I hear you. It hurts more when you only lose one.
Rob, the guy won the fight. I thought Ray Ford won the fight. I really want to fucking write to the fucking government about this shit or something. I need to get paid out of this.
It hurts the worst, man. I'd rather lose them all than just miss one. All right. And Dominic, Gvozdyk, Pero, Martin, who would you put your 100 on?
Probably Gvozdyk, because purely for the fact that I think even if Martin does upset the odds and sort of does well over 12 rounds, I couldn't see him getting a decision. And I think, I can't see Paro and having much joy against Matias, so probably Gvozdyk.
And technically, gentlemen, with the books, Gvozdyk is the closest on the odds. He's actually at about 17-4 if my fractions are holding. So, anyhow, plus 425 for the Americans for Gvozdyk. Widest was Pero at plus 475, almost getting to the 5-1 territory. So that's what we have the next couple weeks. Let's go ahead and move it on into the Bellew of the week. And what should we kick it off with this time? Let's see here. God, I don't even remember which one this is, but it's a good week to pick on Eddie. Let's do this.
So in 10 days' time, touch wood, DAZN have the entire roster of middleweight world champions. So people like Charlo, you've no fights for you. If you want to be a world middleweight champion, you better join DAZN ASAP.
His middleweight lost last night. What a sad day for Eddie. That kind of did work out all right. Let's see here. Let's go for the image ones first. We'll do those and then we'll do the videos. This is just a nice little picture. 10-0. Well done, Queensberry. Well done.
Brick Top cut off his fucking Jacobs, didn't he?
Man, that was a tough night for Eddie. That was a very tough night for Eddie. Let's see here. What do we have? Rick Glaser going in on him. Eddie tweeted, "Congrats, Frank Warren gave us a spanking tonight. Incredible night, incredible concept, and we look forward to running it back very soon." At Tricky Ala Shake. Rick Glaser replied, "Eddie, you're shaking the hand of a real boxing guy in Frank Warren, something your organization is totally devoid of." Oh, score one for Glaser. He finally gets one.
Slick Rick the Ruler, back in effect. There was a 3 million bounty for the winner of that promotional clash last night, wasn't it? So Frank Warren walked away with 3 million. And some reporter said to him, "Frank, are you going to divvy up that between the fighters?" And he was like, "No, it's for the promotional house."
It sucks that he wasn't able to get that. He would have been able to finally recoup some of that Tevin Farmer money.
Well, I was thinking Sky Nicholson was on a bonus if he'd won that fucking 3 million. Like, but she's not getting that now. Like, is she?
They would have taken a lovely trip. How sad. Shed a tear for Sky. See here. Fred Garvin going in on Malik Scott. He says, "High-level boxing facts. Deontay Wilder has only won one fight since Malik Scott started his OnlyFans."
He's not going to be back on it anytime soon, is he, with Kate Abdo on a CBS contract?
Well, we know what you would be signing up for if that was to happen.
They should be signing up to me, to be honest with you, Matty.
Matchroom taking all this in stride, tweeting a picture. Now we are fucked. Yes, Matchroom.
That's why you need Wellington back on the pod. A good snatch reference. Wellington loved one of them, didn't he? He would have got that. Like,
I haven't seen that movie in years. I wouldn't have been able to recognize it. Shame on me. See here, Mr. Tommy Robinson getting in on Sonny Edwards. He says, "I didn't have Sonny Edwards, the boxer, down as a bitch of Islam," he said. And then see here, John at the bottom said, "He'd batter you, Tommy. Know your lane." Somebody in the chat called Sonny Edwards Sunni Edwards, and I thought that was pretty fucking funny. just to bring that about.
It's a matchup I'd like to see. Put it that way.
Let's see your unpopular opinion here. Let's see here. Kelly Hammer says Plaster and the hand refs have nothing to do with why Margarito beat Miguel Cotto. Regardless, Plaster, no Plaster, Miguel should have avoided the straight right. To be honest, if anything, the Plaster would make his punches slower. Margarito won fair and square.
Fair and square, like the lumpy punched out of fucking Cotto's head. Cotto's head looked like, you know, when you finish a jigsaw and you can't find the last piece and it's like a fucking mad awkward piece. He punched the fucking lump out of his head that looked like that, like, but it was definitely not loaded gloves. Plaster bars. Fuck off, man.
That's taken us back a long time. But we on the forums about that. We're gonna hit the videos first. I'm saving one for last of the among the images here. Let's see here.
It has been a quiet week, like I think for the bit of these, Matty.
A little bit, but I think there's some funny ones in here. Let's see here. Canelo was optimistic.
Let's go. All the best for you. Let's go, Matchroom. Big win coming Saturday in Arabia Saudita. All the best for you, my friend. You're the best. Come on.
That was the fucking
yeah.
I fucking love what he is.
Now, for people who know some of the words that Chinese people use for fillers, kind of like for us, maybe you give them a pass, but I don't know.
Zhang, nigga, Zhongguo about to enter the...
Yeah.
He's doing that on purpose at this stage, isn't he? Like, he knows
doesn't it feel like that? He knows. He knows. You're not walking around in China deciding if you want to buy something and you know, no, he knows.
Looking like a fucking lost magician with that waistcoat on him. What's wrong with him, man? Fuck me.
He doesn't have his dungeon chain on him these days in Saudi. Maybe he doesn't want to scare the Saudis too much, I think, with his dungeon chain.
Hey, Rob, if he was a magician, he would be David Copperfield.
He's right from the Phoenix, mate.
She's in total control of her body. Remember he said that about Ebbs?
Yeah, she could be a Muhammad Ali like figure. Yeah, I remember that quite a bit.
Lift your leg up, Arthur. That's a Wellington.
One of his best moments is the intro to the pod when he lost his mind when he saw porn star Elle Brooke and he said, "Don't you have powerful? How did you get the powerful legs?" You know, it's been on his mind for months. Just blurted it out the minute he seen her.
I remember before Yard fought Beterbiev asking Rob, would God ask Beterbiev, would he risk asking Beterbiev if he short before the fight, the way he asked Dillian White, and Steve was remembering the God another one. He said he asked someone they were standing on the other side of some barrier and he asked them to lift their leg up, and Steve was imagining the God saying this to Beterbiev. He says, "Lift your leg up, Arthur." It's just something the God would come out with, like, but
I think you might ask him for some of his drugs.
He's out of control, isn't he? The guy, like, he's just nobody has fucking any handle on the guy to what his movements are, what he's going to do next. Like, get this fucking guy out of here, like. Fuck's sake.
It's strange thinking who he actually he writes for the Daily Telegraph. He seems to have a gig with Talk Sport. So he's basically like a freelancer. And he also seems to be like a sort of publicist for Team Fury. So yeah, and he does a bit of work for Top Rank as well. When British fighters are fighting Top Rank fighters in America. So yeah, he has his fingers in many a pie, does the God.
I kind of feel like this is ultimately might end up being called the Gad of the week because he just seems to overtake it. But here we go. We got another one with Eddie involved.
First of all, give me that war cry from Deontay Wilder. Just give me your best bomb squad first of all.
You want a bomb squad? I mean, I'm not.
Nah, you're full of energy. Come on. You have
bomb squad!
Go on, Eddie. Just
break. Nothing, mate. Nothing, mate. I didn't say anything, mate.
Go on,
really getting us back into it.
I thought Big Z was about
you were shouting that down the phone to Sky Nicholson, wasn't he? His FaceTime.
Yeah.
Allegedly, get yourself alive.
That is kind of poetic because his squad certainly bombed on Saturday.
10 into on the shoulder roll, bump him on the inside.
Let's see here. Oh, here's Joseph Parker showing you how he goes about dinner.
Huh? I'm not fighting him if I'm another heavyweight. I'll tell you right now, if I'm not fucking fighting him. If he's eating fish out of the fucking river raw without cooked, gutting him, nothing. Fuck that. I'm not fighting him, no way.
Do you see the Lynx fighters are having to go now because of their fear of tainted beef? Just eating fish right out of the fucking ocean.
That's it. There's Austrian in those fish, if anyone asks.
Oh man, the Darren Barker one I didn't think was quite the funniest. I sorry about that one. Again, thanks Jay for compiling this. I don't think the Darren Barker didn't quite get the laugh on that one. Liam sent me this one. Look at what Glenn McCrory is using LinkedIn for.
Glenn McCrory, I just want to give a message out to Joe Egan and John Fury. I'll fight you both on the same night. So just get ready. You want me? You got me. Come on, clowns.
As Rob said, the only fight Big John Fury could win.
Quite possibly. I just think it's interesting people are posting this stuff on LinkedIn. It's like looking for administrative work. Also, I want to fight John Fury.
Wasn't a great bunch of lads there on LinkedIn doing a lot of great work, I'm sure.
So I forgot to get a screen cap of this one. I thought Matchroom, or excuse me, DAZN messed up quite a bit on this one. The pay-per-view through their app, $70. I flip it over to my cable provider, $40. Big loss on that one, DAZN. Way to price yourself out of a sale. And let's see here. What was the last one we were doing? Oh, here we go. And it does appear that Madonna and Richard Riakporhe are dating. When asked what he thought about dating the Like a Virgin singer, Riakporhe said, "I wish." Yeah.
Jesus. Well, wish them well.
See if we just go fucking sit down at this stage. Fucking hell, man. Material Girl was in 1988. Like, fucking it's been downhill since there. What the fuck are you still doing around the place? Will you fucking go off before you put your hip out?
So what does it feel like to date the Material Girl? Riakporhe said, like leather.
You think she'd seek out Tony the Tiger Thompson, Rob, wouldn't you? There's a man that would do a few hips in.
Well, she could be in a fragile position looking for a transplant at this stage. Well, listen, we wish them well. Riakporhe, Madonna, I'm sure it's going to fucking stand the test of time, this relationship.
Asking if...
wonder what we'll see her in a few weeks in London at ringside.
You never know.
So. Her and Mel B.
It'd be an interview with beautiful Ben Shalom and Madonna.
Madonna's doing your ring walk, man, to fucking Like a Prayer or some shit. That'd be fucking amazing.
They asked him if he remembers her hit song "Ray of Light," and he says, "Nope, all I see is a deep, dark tunnel."
No, he's like, "La Isla Bonita is my shit, though."
If only Bean was still working for Sky and he was sort of talking about Madonna.
On a deeper level, let's not get too Richard D. Hall here, but does this mean Riakporhe's joining the boys? Do you know what I mean? Madonna's at the fucking top level, isn't she? Like, does this mean Riakporhe's got a gateway to the fucking... You know what I mean?
Well, and when Madonna was asked about the age difference, she said, "Great nephew, don't preach."
On that note.
I've had a while to work on these, Rob. Oh, dear. Let's see. Do you guys have any nominations this week?
No, Matty. I actually thought the Darren Barker one was very good because he was talking about the He was talking really deadly.
Do you want me to throw it up there? If you,
I want
I'll
just
do
for
it. I'll do
for
it.
Rob, for Rob, just for Rob.
Just because you asked, and you're such a nice guy helping us put it all together.
Recently, how special, how unique this show is. I mean, this is groundbreaking. This is Boxing's Ryder Cup. This is people in the venue. This is people at home tallying up their scores, projecting their scores. Could this come down to the final match and you have all the fighters around the ring willing their team on? They want that $3 million. I mean, this has got everything to be a groundbreaking special event.
And that's the key, isn't it? Such an individual sport for you fighters over the years. You lock yourselves away now, part of a team, Eddie firing you up, Frank and George firing you up. It's like we've never seen before.
Yeah, it's so unique, and let me tell you, it's the first, but it won't be the last. This is, I think we're going to see nations v other nations. We'll see this again. I'm confident.
6v6, 7v7, 8v8.
Of course, it just makes sense. It's a great concept, and you almost think to yourself, well, why hasn't this happened before? You know, it's brilliant, and the fight.
We love His Excellency, and of course we've got Daniel Dubois playing centre half. Bivol like Pirlo in the middle, a playmaker.
What about
up to Zhilei Zhang?
What about nations? What about nations versus nations, Rob? The thought that came to my mind was Sandy Ryan against some RG gal. Can you imagine that?
Is it East versus West or man against man?
Oh, it's just the way it was just the way they were selling the 5 versus 5. You know, like the basically the fights. In fairness to Frank Warren, he basically just said it right. You know, at the end of the day, the fights were good boxing fights, good trade fights. But I just thought it was just the way they were trying to market the hell out of the 5v5 thing. It was just a bit worrying. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, Rob, do you have any nominees yourself this week?
Not topping Richard Reactor fucking date Madonna. We fuck off. What have I got after that?
Okay.
Nothing.
All right. So this week, let's see here. We have let's go to the videos here. Gad for throwing out the N-word in his own special way. Canelo wishing Matchroom the best and cursing them. Eddie doing his best bomb squad. Joseph Parker eating fish straight from the ocean. Darren Barker in his comments on the 5 vs 5. Then we had an unpopular opinion about Margarito. Tommy Robinson being his usual bigoted self. Matchroom accepting defeat. Fred Garvin going on Malik Scott quite well. Scoring one for Rick Glazer, knocking Matchroom quite well. He was bound to get one. The blind squirrel has found his acorn. And may we not forget, 10-0. But, of course, let us not leave out the new power couple, Madonna and Richard Reactor. Go ahead, Rob. I at least need you to vote. You at least need to cast your ballot, sir.
I just feel like Joshua Boatti missed out, like, didn't he?
I like how you phrased that, Matty, power couple, because that's exactly the sort of thing Bean would have said. He loved that phrase, power couple, when you had Lauren Price and Cara Sartain stall cheering each other on at ringside. Bean was coming out with boxing's new power couple, so I like that. That's an appropriate way of summing it up.
Well, go ahead.
So I've been on the pod 7 years, right? And the only thing stranger than this moment I can remember is when the UFO landed in the field. That Richard Reactor is fucking banging Madonna, man. What the fuck is going on? Amazing. This is fuck's sake. Oh,
there's a good one there, Rob.
How did they meet? Like,
apparently she's just broken up. So I read earlier she was actually going out with some American fighter, and she's broken up with him, and now she's
going through the fire partner list.
Yeah. You see, Rob, you see that one there? I don't know if you saw it. Someone in the chats pointed it out. Frank Warren's interview after the fights were over last night, and he was having a go at his own pundits. And he just, with Eddie Hearn beside him, he just said those pundits couldn't tip rubbish. So that was good from Frank. Eddie's face was a picture. Eddie standing right beside him. I think he was talking about whoever that his own punditry team was. I don't know who's on the zone.
I don't know really.
But
I'm on Fire Stick. What was I watching last night? Fucking
TNT.
Carl Frampton, by the way. Carl Frampton, is he dyeing his hair, mate? He's your mate, isn't he? Carl Frampton, he's dyeing his hair, is he? What's going on with him?
Here he had ball up like 5-1 after 6, which even I couldn't.
He had just for men in his hair 5-to-1 ratio. That's what he had.
Yeah. Well, Madonna's had just 4 men in other places.
You wait for a bus. There you go.
Well, I guess it's all unanimous. So the power couple, Richard Reactpour and Madonna, you already have one W. To your credit, we give you the congratulations. You are this week's Value of the Week winner. I would like to thank Des for hopping on with us, Dominic, and Rob Kelly, who lasted the distance. We didn't know he had a motor. We always thought that he had
those questions about the gas tank there, but it proved all the critics wrong.
Yeah, you absolutely do. You might even be a 15-round fighter, Rob. You never know. But those days are long gone. And this episode of the podcast is going to be long gone in here in a minute. Remember, we are not going to be here next week. We're going to take a week off, and then we're going to come back, review all this stuff that we just previewed, and maybe some things that we didn't catch. I'd like to thank Mr. Tosh Brendan, Home Junior Malone, Tosh Kagulu, and all those other things, throwing in 9.99, and also Ryan Dill throwing us some of those New Zealand Buccarinos. We appreciate you both. I appreciate everybody in the chat. I'm sorry for not doing a rundown this week. You have my apologies. You know who you are. You keep this show going, and we appreciate each and every one of you. But we will see you back here on the 16th of June for the next edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. Until then, everybody take care, and we will see you then.
We'll never forget.
I think that's good happening.
We want to be honest, yeah.
Crying like a little bitch. I've never met a fucking swank that can fight me.
I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
You're a fucking bum, you're a fucking asshole.
Grumpo fucking Steltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7-year ain't. 7-year ain't.
I will fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love Boxing Asylum. It's as simple as that.